Hi, welcome to the International Women of Blockchain. My name is Olienka Odenerin. It's good to see everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is the International Women of Blockchain, and my name is Olienka Odenerin, and I am the founder of Black Women Blockchain Council. I'm also the creator of the International Women of Blockchain celebration that we're having here throughout the entire month of March. Throughout this month, we are showcasing women from various countries all over the world who are participating in this blockchain ecosystem that we're building. It's important to show representation, and we want to make sure that you guys know there are women in this space. It's not just a male-dominated space, it's a human-dominated space. And we're definitely bringing to you from information from women across the globe. And we're happy to be here. We're happy to be running this since the 1st of March, and it will be all month long. That means 31 days of wonderful content, wonderful information, and wonderful discussions from various women across the country and across the globe. I'm really excited about this because I believe that this is one of the first ever event that's featuring just women. It's created by women and it's presented to you by women. And we're very happy to showcase this event. Today is Worldwide Wednesday, and with Worldwide Wednesday, we focus on Web3. We realize that Web3 is very important, especially as we're developing what Web3 looks like and how it's going to impact us as people and us as community. So it's important to have those deep discussions and think about how we're building this Web3 so that we won't repeat what we know to be wrong with society now. And so with that said, I'm going to introduce you to Tam Fitzgerald and have Tam come up, and she's going to be our moderator for Worldwide Wednesdays. Come on up, Tam.
Hi.
Just having a little bit of technical difficulties. Hey, Tam, how are you?
Hey, Yinka, I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm really excited about today and what we're about to discuss and present to our viewers. Web3 is very important to all of us. We're all trying to move towards this really great, idealistic idea of the fact that we own our data and we control really how we as people navigate individually in this space. So that's very important. But it's also important to have that deep discussion as to how we're building Web3 and what we envision to have in Web3. So I'm going to let you take it away.
Absolutely. Exactly what you said, Yinka. And a big part of that is like we have to think about what business is going to look like. If we're talking about building out new infrastructures and building in this Web3 space, it's going to take a lot of collaboration. It's going to take a lot of I guess creativity in the way that we interact in different spaces. And so today we're going to focus on the business space. And we have a great panel to get today for you all. These ladies they have a variety of background and a lot of different industries, and they're also in this Web3 space. So we're hoping to have a great conversation today in which we will touch on some of the cultural differences, the things that we've noticed presently as we're developing, and then also what we are expecting in the future. So we're going to go ahead and bring up our panel now. My name is Tam Fitzgerald, by the way, and I am a financial advisor and international bookbinder. Means I spend time going to and from all over, traveling all over, eating and describing my experiences. And then I also use life insurance and to help people build financial wealth as well as tax-free retirement planning. So that's what I do. But it doesn't, the great thing about this space is that it literally is for everyone. So welcome to the stage, ladies. And we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and start with Mahasin. We want to know, introduce yourself for us, Mahasin.
Hello, everyone. Can I confirm that everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my name is Mahasan El Quadri, and I am the Amina of crypto. I'm a metaverse blockchain educator. So I essentially spend my days educating people on how to make use of the metaverse or the blockchain. So cryptocurrencies, other blockchain products, also products relating to the metaverse. In addition to that, I run Coin Talk Africa, where I'm the host. Coin Talk Africa is essentially a series of web series focused on the subject matter of the blockchain in the African ecosystem. So in Coin Talk Africa, I spend my days talking about different subject matters relating to the blockchain ecosystem in Africa. I basically spend my whole day speaking to people within the blockchain industry, experts, enthusiasts, and innovators within the industry. So that's my bit.
All right, thank you, Mahasin. Shirley, would you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you. Yes, so thank you for having me. My name is Shirley and I'm based in the UK, originally of African origin, and I'm really excited about this space because the technology is not new, and I'm just happy that it's coming to the fore now. What it does offer is a lot of new ways to almost reimagine business, to reimagine money, to reimagine financial literacy, financial freedom, with play to earn games. It's literally changing lives all over the world, especially, I don't know if you guys have heard of Axie Infinity in the Philippines, but also Africa, there are quite a number of guilds. So in terms of my background, I'm a consultant. I'm also a tech founder. I'm the founder of Web3 Africa. And I also dabble in the metaverse. I've been around it for a while, having run like a business on Second Life in the early 20s. So nice to be here, and I can't wait for the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shirley. We're glad you're with us today. Okay, and go ahead, Kianga. We're gonna skip on down to you. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Unmic and introduce yourself for us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kianga Johari Moore, and I'm actually from the U.S., Detroit, Michigan. And my company, Sunbeam Solutions, was started by my fiance, who was a cryptocurrency, pioneer in his country of Benin Republic. And he also was a computer engineer. And he created this company for the both of us. And he taught me everything I know about cryptocurrency. Unfortunately, he did pass in January. So I'm just inspired by his vision, and I'm just carry on, what his dreams were when it came to cryptocurrency. So we offer a payment gateway for our merchants in West Africa. We offer consulting, and we also we work with our cryptocurrency traders as well to turn their money into exchange of money into fiat. And my background, I'm a multimedia journalist, so I did get into copyright for companies. So that's where my knowledge comes from. But I'm happy to be here. I'm definitely excited about the future of cryptocurrency for nations such as Africa, especially because I feel that it's a great way to really gain wealth and be independent in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Kianga. And I'm sorry for your loss, but and I'm happy to know that that seed was planted for you to continue on with his vision. And we're so happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
All right, and last but certainly not least, Danielle, are you with us?
Yes, hi.
All righty, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Danelle Williams. I'm here based in the United States. I'm actually in Detroit currently as well.
Great.
And hey, and so I actually come from a legal background. I've been an attorney for over 13 years in the corporate litigation space. And I became very enamored with cryptocurrencies in about 2017. And since then, I've been very interested in finding ways to teach others about this incredible opportunity to create generational wealth. And so what I'm building is a multimedia platform, which is building community through financial education, crypto education, through networking, and providing various resources. So we are currently starting a YouTube channel. We have a Twitter account as well as an Instagram account. So we're hoping that people will be able to go to those avenues. We're looking forward to having networking events down the line. And we, I echo everyone else's sentiments about, the future of Web3. And it's important for us and our community around the world to learn as much as we can now, because we still are so early in the space. So we think it's a great opportunity to learn as much as we can and hopefully take advantage of this amazing opportunity.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to have you with us, Danelle. And I'm really excited because as I come to every Wednesday when I'm here moderating, I'm always telling people, like, listen, I'm here in this space because I'm learning. Okay. So, and the next thing I tell them is get your pens, get your paper. That's why I'm over here. I got my pen, my paper, because I host these because I want to learn. Okay. I host these because I want to learn. And I also want to ask the questions that people like me who are new to this space, but understand that there's value here and want to bring wealth and, want to educate other people. Like, we have to get here. We have to start having these conversations. So I'm ready. I hope everybody out there, I hope you're listening, are ready. You're ready to take some notes. So let's go ahead and get started with our first question. The first question is, why does Web3 make sense for your business or industry? Danelle, would you go ahead and start us off with that?
Sure. Just to give a little background with regards to what Web3 is. So when you start off with Web1, it basically was just having the opportunity to read on the internet. You just were able to have information available to you, being able to connect to the internet and be able to have information available to you using a protocol called TCP/IP. And then the next level was Web2, which is basically the rise of social media. So now you can interact with the internet and you can interact with other people via the internet. And this is when big tech companies, particularly, were able to use our data and made billions and billions of dollars off of being able to understand the current consumers and users of the internet. So now with Web3, us as consumers, we have an opportunity to have ownership of our data. We can now be the gatekeepers of our data. So now, companies like Facebook and Google and whatnot, they're now going to have to be able to ask, they're now going to have to ask for our permission to be able to use our data. And now we can not only own our data, we can also use things like NFTs, which I'm really into, to be able to verify, the ownership of certain items. Whether it's digital assets or physical goods, we can use NFTs to be able to authenticate. So if you have a company that sells goods and valuables and you want people to be able to know that this is your good and valuable, and so you can use NFTs to authenticate that. So someone can now see on the blockchain, using the blockchain, that this is an authentic good that you're selling. You can also use, NFTs and Web3 to prove provenance, meaning that you can prove the origin of that particular good. So as a business, if someone's trying to purchase one of your goods, they can see that it came directly from you, that the origin of that good was from your company. And also because it's on the blockchain and using blockchain technology, it's immutable. So that means that it can't be changed. So once it's been transacted and you recorded on the public ledger of the blockchain, it now can't be changed. So that's how you're also able to prove, and verify and authenticate, your consumer goods. So using Web3 can be used in a variety of ways for companies. And, as we saw, every company had to then get a social media platform. They had to get a Facebook, account. They had to get, YouTube account or Instagram account. You're now going to see companies now move to Web3, where they're going to provide, NFTs or, other versions of NFTs on Web3 to be able to prove the authenticity of their brand and their goods.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's excellent. That's exactly, I know that's very beneficial to businesses, like, because you hear all the time about how there's a separate industries, like for everything consumer goods, like businesses, where you're using services where people are charging for the second hand or like inauthentic information, inauthentic clothes, like shoes, like, and that in and of itself is like $1 billion industry.
Mhm.
So being able to verify that you actually are using authentic materials and authentic, like, this authentic brand is like definitely a game changer. Really, it's really a game changer. Thank you for that, Danelle. So Mahasan, why does Web3 make sense for your business or industry or other people's business or industries?
Okay, thank you very much, Tam. So I totally subscribe to everything that my previous speaker said. For me, and this is what I always tell my students, new technologies or emerging technologies are about disrupting the current status quo. And the current status quo that we have right now is Web 2.0, a situation where we don't own our own content. So we're creating content, but we don't necessarily own it, whether it's an image of ourselves or even something as simple as a recording of our voice or
like
something
a
that we've
TikTok
written.
video. Like you
Or
don't
like a
actually
TikTok
own
video.
that, right?
Yeah, you don't actually own it. You create it,
Right.
you put it on the internet, and then you lose ownership of it. So what Web3 does is it essentially disrupts the internet. So in the same way that the NFT technology disrupts the art industry, the global art industry, Web3 disrupts the internet and reverses, or should I say, shakes the table and changes the ownership structure. So in Web 1 and Web 2, okay, in Web 2, should I say, the ownership favored the corporations, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Twitters. And so you created content, but they took ownership of it and they were able to monetize it through advertising and make money from it while you're not making anything. Meaning that we were doing all the work as users, but these corporations were making all the money and enjoying all the benefits of the work that we were doing. Now, in the Web3 realm, it is the user, you and I, we are able to create our own content and own it. And what that means is that we have the freedom, we have the ability to monetize as we choose, and we can also transfer as we please. Everything you do on Web3 benefits you as an individual. And so it's no longer there's a term in my local language that says one person is working and the other person is gaining the benefits of it. Or there's another term that we use where we say that Mr. A takes the Panadol to cure Mr. B's headache. So what Web3 does is it rectifies that. It creates individual sovereignty within the internet or within the virtual or digital realm, ensuring that there's social justice, should I say, within the digital realm, so that individuals can own their own content, monetize it, and actually have real freedom on the internet. So that's what I would say.
I think that both of you made great points and that I have never heard it really explained so succinctly. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that definition, like, and how things are changing. Thank you, Mahasan. Shirley, go ahead and chime in for us. So what about you? What are you seeing? What are the differences that you're seeing? How does it make sense for your business and your industry?
Okay, I think you can hear me now. Okay. Yeah, I really wanted to play devil's advocate because I do feel that Web3 is awesome. I do feel it offers a lot of opportunity, but I also feel that it's going to offer some challenges. And I would like to put forward that it isn't actually ideal for business. Hey, the thing is that we're almost trying to balance the interest of a business versus a customer. And I feel that because we need to, it's trying to, where do we find that balance? I feel we need to find that balance. So let me just delve a bit deeper. So first of all, NFT, assuming that it was used correctly, is great. But we do know that people are acquiring NFT artifacts, pictures, videos, audio files, with slightly dodgy means. It's not theirs in the first place. Just because you created the NFT doesn't mean you own it. It could belong to someone else. Someone could have created that copyright elsewhere. So the first thing to do as an NFT purchaser is you need to ensure that the NFT or the person who's done it hasn't acquired that artifact under suspicious means. Otherwise, you become the owner of something you don't actually, it's just not valid. So that's a problem that people need to be aware of when they're buying NFTs and also when they're creating them. You'll see on OpenSea, there are lots of copycat collections, and they get pulled down. So that's an example of that. Once you purchase, you can no longer get your money back. Secondly, licensing. Normally, NFTs are designed for transfer of ownership. So I love the NFT world, and I love the opportunity of what it's going to give to us. Right now, the focus tends to be on collectibles, but actually NFTs are being used for lots of things, including real estate, etc. I would love, and I think there's definitely the opportunity for NFTs to be used for periodic, sort of renewables, like recurring subscriptions. That doesn't really happen because an NFT is a one-time transfer of ownership, and that's it. So I do feel that it would be great to get that innovation, and I know that some people are working on it. So that doesn't make an NFT ideal for business. The other thing is, when it comes to blockchain suffers from the last mile problem. So as much as blockchain is immutable and you get the provenance and all that's great, it is actually impossible to attach a unit of blockchain to a physical item. So if we're talking about counterfeiting, for example, let's just say I mine gold and I want to ensure that my buyers or my customers know for sure that it's come from my mine, right? I can't actually attach, the blockchain equivalent of that item to the physical item. So that's why we're looking at things like IoT to be able to do that. And then lastly, like I said, data is required because me as a business owner, if I want to find emerging trends to build new services and things like that, I can't do that because the blockchain, as you know, is anonymous and even is open, but it's anonymous. So it's almost like, how do we actually know what's, it's almost like health, right? To be able to understand and solve diseases, we need data. So data is important. So that being said, as a consumer, I don't agree with my data being used against my wishes in ways that I don't want. So it's almost like we need to find that middle point, and I just don't think we found that yet. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Absolutely, Shirley. Mahasin, would you like to address that at all?
Yes, I do want to address a few of Shirley's points. First and foremost, Shirley, thank you very much for choosing to be the devil's advocate in this discussion. I run panels all the time, and I'm literally holding my breath, looking forward to the person who's going to do that. And very rarely do they do it. More often than not, people tend to agree with the subject matter or the perspective that the subject matter takes when it takes off. So I do appreciate that very much, Shirley. But then I beg to differ on several points that you've mentioned. On the issue of theft, you are quite right. There are many incidences of theft and different ways in which people are using things like NFTs to scam other people, either by selling them work that they did not themselves create, or by stealing work from others and presenting it as their own, or by essentially scamming people in one way or the other. But the thing about it is that what we need to appreciate is that whether you're talking about cryptocurrencies or the blockchain itself, or you're talking about the evolutions of the blockchain or the things that the blockchain has given birth to, like DeFi, NFTs, cryptocurrencies, and so on and so forth, and even Web3, because Web3 in itself is a child of the blockchain. Regardless of which one of those things you're focusing on or you're talking about, you have to bear in mind that these are evolutions, or these are technologies in evolution. So we're in the middle of the growth stage of these technologies. In all cases, none of them have grown to a point where you can even say that they've concluded the first stage of their growth. None of them have. So for instance, if you look at when you're talking about things like NFTs, you're talking essentially about smart contracts. And you'll have to agree with me that the smart contract is still in its baby stages right now. It is still a very, very primitive version of the smart contract technology. Now, the other day, I was having a panel where we're talking about NFTs and the impact upon the art industry in Africa. And somebody brought up the question about things like the rights copyright ownership and things like that.
Uh-oh, did we lose Mahasan? Or is it just, I think we might have lost Mahasan just for a second there.
My answer to that question up. There was an interruption, so that's why I paused. Tam, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so my apologies. A call came through on my end. I don't know why people call me like this when I'm not expecting it. Like I was saying, smart contracts are in their baby stages right now, but in the long run, as they begin to evolve, they'll become even stronger, more powerful documents than they already are. Now, smart contract is already a very powerful contract. It is literally an eighth wonder of the world, because the smart contracts, as part of the Ethereum network, allows you to be able to enforce your terms and conditions. The Ethereum network on its own is a powerful, powerful engine. It means that you are able to enforce the terms of your contract with the user. You are able to punish bad behavior. You are able to manage the system, and you're doing all of this decentralized and in a network that doesn't require any form of interference or support. So it's already a very amazing technology. But what the smart contract does is it allows you to be able to impute more and more evolutions or upgrades to the system. So I'll give you a typical example. As at the year 2020, you could create a smart contract for your NFT, for instance, that would allow you to determine things like the amount of money that will be paid for your NFT and the currency in which that money should be paid. However, if you look at it in today's world, in 2022, you're able to do a lot more than that. In today's world, you're able to impute additional conditions like that will allow you to, for instance, ensure that every single time your NFT is sold, that you get a kickback or commission from future buyers. In addition to that, in today's version of the smart contract, you are able to do things like impute real world benefits to the ownership of an NFT. So if you buy into an NFT project and they decide that all the owners of that NFT project are going to get these additional benefits, and some of those benefits are digital benefits and others are real world benefits, the NFT smart contract comes along with the ability to ensure that those benefits are enforced. So essentially what I'm saying is that if you consider the fact that the smart contract is evolving over time, then you'll know that even though these challenges or pitfalls do exist right now, over time, we're going to evolve away from them. So that's what I would say about the issue of people scamming other people, stealing people's NFTs. A typical example of this is the way that people, as at the beginning of, or should I say the middle of 2020 up until the middle, or should I say the end of 2021, where any random person could just go to the Bored Ape Yacht Club website, take a screenshot of one of the most expensive Bored Apes there and put them on their profile picture on Twitter and present themselves as somebody who owns a Bored Ape. But today, we all know that you can't do that anymore, because now Twitter has created a feature that allows you to be able to verify your ownership of whatever NFT you put up there on Twitter. And that is all part of the evolution of the NFT space, of smart contracts and so on and so forth. Let me try and refer to the other point that you brought across. You talked about licensing, Shirley. I think the issue of smart contracts also addresses the issue of licensing. However, I think you're referring to it more with regard to things like copyright ownership and the ability to assign ownership of your NFT and so on and so forth. And I think that has more to do with the law than anything else. And as we all know, those of us who are lawyers particularly, the law is doing, it hasn't even started catching up with the evolution of the metaverse, with the blockchain, and with Web3. They're nowhere near catching up right now. But going forward, with a lot of the initiatives that are being brought forward by people like myself and my fellow lawyer that I have here on the panel, we know that going forward that this will change because we will start to upgrade our legal system and the regulations that those laws are brought about based on, to make it easier for one to, for instance, secure their ownership, whether that ownership is distributing full ownership rights, meaning that it's a full transfer of ownership, or it's a partial transfer of ownership, or it's just a loan. So as the law begins to evolve and catch up with developments within the technology system, and specifically within the blockchain and Web3 system, you will see that we will have laws that will help to secure things like licensing, copyrights, even contracts. Because, for instance, someone presented a scenario the other day on LinkedIn about a person who bought a piece of property on the metaverse and built it up into apartments. So it was an apartment building, and then rented out space in that apartment building. And then one of the tenants refused to pay their rent. So the law will catch up with all these scenarios and create solutions that will help us deal with these scenarios going forth. But right now, we're still in the evolution. We're still taking baby steps. That's what I would say about it.
I'd love to respond. Sorry. I don't really feel I don't think that we're disagreeing. I'm actually a legal person myself, so I've worked in legal and compliance for Barclays, RBS, HSBC, that kind of thing, Shell, etc. So I don't think we're disagreeing. The point I'm making is it's all about the law. Technology catches up with the law. Where the law doesn't, like, technology is not going to reinvent the laws or international laws. So where things happen, whether the case law is there or not, they're going to revert to the law that is existing. The truth is, as you say, it is in its infancy. The technology isn't handling all the things like licensing. It's going to get there. I'm not saying it's not. The point I'm trying to make is people still need to do their due diligence on the NFT origin. That's all I said. And people still need to, like with the NFTs, an NFT is not designed to handle licensing. It's designed to transfer ownership from one person to another. And yes, copyright allows licensing that NFTs can't handle at the moment. And yes, there is work to do that, but we're not at that point. That's all I made. I think we're saying the same thing. So just wanted to clarify.
Absolutely. I appreciate you as well, Shirley, for bringing up that point, because it is important for us to remember that we are in a developing space. It is not developed, right? So we have a lot of things to work through as far as smart contracts, as far as utilizing them, like as far as NFTs and people understanding, like, that you need to know where that NFT came from and like what the project is like.
And Tam,
it takes,
Tam,
yeah.
I just wanted to say a contract, be that smart contract or not, is as good as the person who authors it. So, and that is why we go to court. So let's not assume that, hey, just because you got a smart contract, we've handled everything, because that is not true.
Absolutely, because it comes from a person who created it, right? And that person that created it, or that entity that created it, you still have to make sure that they are aligned. You have to make sure that they are an honest in person or business that you're dealing with, in order to avoid certain pitfalls that we know that are in this space heavy, like right now. I always say the scammers are out. Okay, they see something new. They know the value in the technology. The scammers are out here, right? And sometimes even corporations and entities become these scammers, in a sense of they're seeing I feel like a lot of times they see the dollar signs and don't really think about the implications sometimes that their actions might have. So,
and Tam, I just wanted to add one more thing.
Go ahead.
A contract is great, but if you don't have money to enforce it, there is no contract.
Ooh, yeah, very true, very true. All things that we still have to build out, right? We still have to figure out ways to make sure that people are being held accountable. And if the laws can't do it, like their pockets need to be able to do it. Like we have to make sure that we have a way to hold people accountable in this space. Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next question, which is
to respond to your question.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Kiana. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to discuss the people that we work with are actual merchants. So the technology that we use in the Web3 space is blockchain technology. And so the beauty of that is that it allows our merchants the ability to more payments because of the blockchain technology. You eliminate the third party. So with that, it just eliminates a middleman, and so it allows our merchants to withdraw their money faster and then put back into their investments. And so this is how I feel is a benefit for, definitely West Africa, because they use a lot of mobile money to make payments, as well as, bank transfers and things of that nature. But this is giving more empowerment to people who don't have access to banking and who only are able to make transactions using their mobile phones. So it's more of like advocacy for people in those developing countries. And Benin is definitely like an untapped market when it comes to trading in cryptocurrency. But a lot of young people are using, trading as well to gain wealth. And so blockchain technology is helping them, establish themselves in a credible way where they wouldn't be able to have certain opportunities because of, banking systems and being unable to be verified in different ways. Blockchain allows them to be able to actually have be in a level playing field as well.
Absolutely, Kianga. And that brings me to a good point that I thought of, like how this space, with cutting out the middleman, I could see it helping literally any business, like, right? Because you're just saving on your costs, if nothing more, the ability to remove that third party cost that you're paying in some way, because be it you're paying fees to the bank to get your money transferred or whatever the case may be, like, with your business, or you may have to go through an intermediary to, like, gets a product from a different country that you need to create, like, your product. So there's a way for you have to do, like, conversion rates and all this kind of stuff. But if you are utilizing certain elements in the blockchain technology, certain cryptocurrencies, you can eliminate that need, and it makes the process a lot easier, and therefore saving you time, saving you money. So I can see that regardless of where you're at in the business enterprise, for Web3, like, it's kind of a good idea to be there. If you want to do nothing else besides cut costs, it might be a good idea to get in. So thank you for that, Kianga. Okay, Danelle, you're back with us. Sorry you're having a little bit of issues, but I'm going to actually try and start out this next question for you. So what are the organizational and cultural differences you've observed in business from being in this space?
Well, I come from a very traditional space, being in corporate litigation in the legal realm. So it's, very, organized in a particular way and very traditional and old school. And, it's been running in a particular way for, decades and hundreds of years at this point. So with Web3, I appreciate the opportunity to provide more creativity, for one, and it's more community building. It's not that hierarchy that you normally see, the traditional hierarchy that you normally see in corporate business. With Web3, it's more collaborative, which I appreciate, and it's more about building community. So as a business and as a business owner, you can consider using Web3 to, as you're trying to build your brand, you use Web3 to build community, because as you're building your brand, it basically is about building your culture and building community to, enhance your brand. So in this way, using Web3, you're now able to connect with other people. It's a little bit more collaborative. If you think about something like DAOs, I don't know if you guys have touched on this in previous sessions, but DAOs being decentralized autonomous organizations, it's going to disrupt many different traditional companies, including like venture capital, where it actually is democratizing the ability to have an investment club, for example, where you now have the opportunity to have a vote on how, that brand is going to move forward in, whatever their mission is for that company. So there's a lot of different ways that Web3 can be used, to be able to find ways to hear other people's voices without feeling that you're on a certain level of a totem pole that you normally see in traditional business.
Wow. Okay. Yes. So we have touched on DAOs a little bit. in a couple of previous sessions, but I do want to I'm going to put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that because I definitely want to talk a little bit more about how that organizational structure like works. And I'm sorry, I know that there's been like a lot of buzzwording around DAO this, DAO, you should be part of this. Like, we don't really know what that means. So I do want to put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that. But before we do that, Kianga, how about you? What are the organizational and cultural differences that you observed in business from being in this space?
I definitely noticed that it basically empowers people who are looking for independence and looking for a way to make their own wealth, generational wealth, without having to work for other people. So for Sunbeam Solutions, I mean, our goal is to be an advocate because we try to bring in as many young people as possible, helping them to learn how to trade, as well as teaching them cryptocurrency so they can be independent. So that's the difference that I've learned. It's that you don't have to sacrifice your happiness and your passions and spend your time working for, organizations. I come from a background, I've worked for JP Morgan Chase. I've worked for my city government. And there was a certain point in time where I was like, I'm not working for anyone else. I'm working for myself. And I just, became independent. And so this allows, the freedom to pursue, my goals, my passions as a journalist, and also, have a way to have an income with cryptocurrency and trading, having a way to trade. And, you stick to a schedule, you still have to be very focused and disciplined when it comes to trading. But it just still allows you to have the freedom to be able to live the life that you want to live without having to work for someone else.
And I'm gonna tell you this right now, this is my goal. Okay, that's part of the reason why I'm like, listen, I'm not a Web3 person. I'm not but I know that from everything I've been listening to, everyone that has come to this space, they're coming from so many different backgrounds, and they're out here being able to make themselves like, not just like wealth or whatever, not just income, but they're also out here through that being able to create a level of freedom that, you don't have when you are responsible to go to some of these traditional organizations, and be it McDonald's all the way up to, maybe you have a government job, it doesn't matter. You're still going to this entity and you still have to play by their certain rules and things like that really are changed. But it's different when it comes to Web3, when you find a space where you can create your own, kind of going back to what Danelle was saying was about this creativity and creating your own community and being collaborative. And so you can actually build something that you want to do and that you are being paid to do, and paid at, learn the skill that you can be paid to do. So and do it on your own terms. So I personally, that's the reason why I'm like, listen, if I got to get in here, if I got to moderate to learn something to be able to shift, then here I am, So yeah, absolutely, Kiaga. Shirley or Mahasa, you guys want to chime in on that one? The organizational cultural differences?
Yeah, I'd love to add a few of my own thoughts on it. So one of the difference between the version where we have the organizational structure within the Web3 realm and organizational structure within the Web2 realm is first and foremost that you have a more just system, because in the Web3 realm, you own the content that you create, which means that you're able to benefit as an individual from your individual sweat equity. So it's more just, it's more equitable. Another point that I would like to bring forward is that in Web3, you have a higher level of transparency and accountability across board. Now, within the blockchain industry, we already have that. But when it comes to the internet itself, we don't necessarily have accountability and responsibility and transparency on the same level. For instance, most of us have no idea where all of our data is going. Little less talk of situations where we're actually able to give permission for our data to be released or used in certain ways. We all know that about some of the apps out there that take personal information. And if you consider the degree of personal information that these apps have access to, it'll shock you. Somebody was talking the other day about how a woman could possibly, he painted a scenario of where a woman gets pregnant, but before she's able to tell her spouse or her partner that she's pregnant, her spouse is already seeing an advert on his on Google or or while he's doing a search, he's already seeing an advert talking about schools or talking about baby cribs or about the cost of education or about hiring a nanny, and he hasn't even been told that his partner is pregnant yet. But because that's the way Web 2 is designed. So in Web 3, things like that are not going to happen at all. So the level of transparency and accountability, whether it's on the organizational level or on the individual level, is higher. Another thing that you want to consider is the level of security and privacy when it comes to Web 3. It's on a higher level. So for instance, in Web 3, we have things like not just the security or privacy in terms of protecting your information, but also in terms of protecting the information that is available to you. So for instance, in the current situation we're in, I can log onto a website onto a particular website, and you, Tam, can log onto a website in your own location. We're both on the same website, but we're seeing two different things. And it can go as far as we're seeing two different things about the same issue or the same subject matter. Yeah. That's how bad it is. But when it comes to Web3, things like this are not necessarily easily done, because we have things like the interplanetary filing system that makes it impossible for you to alter information before it gets to the user. So in that scenario, in the Web3 scenario, if I logged onto a website and you logged onto the same website at the same time, you'd get the same information. So that's a very, very important aspect of things, because right now we have a situation where different people in different parts of the world are getting different information from the same websites.
Right.
That's
right.
That's a distortion all on its own. Then we have things, if you look at things like, sorry, I wrote down a whole list of stuff in response to this particular question. When you consider the laws and regulations that are applicable. So right now in the situation we're in, we have a situation where different laws apply in different areas, and this impacts upon our ability to transact across borders. It impacts on our ability to access certain features or certain products. So in the ideal Web3 scenario, which is a scenario where we're able to resolve certain frictions that we currently have within the real world. So in the Web 2 world, we have certain frictions. So a typical example of such a friction would be the friction of currencies. So it's essentially a conflict in the prices of different currencies, because right now, the price that you, Tam, would experience for a currency, a fiat currency like the dollar or the naira or the yen, is different from what I would experience in my locality. And that's part of what we're talking about in the friction. But in the Web3 world, where we're using cryptocurrencies, there will be a unification of such things so that everybody is able to access the same currencies at the same prices, and therefore cross-border transactions would be equitable and universally available. That's a typical example of the kind of differences I would experience on the corporate level and the individual level from Web 2 to Web 3. Another example would be in terms of okay, let me just stop here for now. I don't want to go too far. I actually have 3 other things here, but I realize that there are other people who want to speak, and I see 4 questions in the chat. So let me just stop here right now.
Yeah, we are getting some questions from the audience, so we're going to go there in just a second. But before we do, I did want to make a point, and I see how with these organizational changes, like you're talking about, as far as like, for instance, they would have businesses essentially would have to run the same information from the same site, like same price and these types of things, how that can actually even begin to affect the culture and the way that we interact and the way that we relate to other people in different cultures as well. If we're all in the same money system, for instance, or if we're all on the same news breaks and like information, whatever, it changes the narrative. And with changing the narrative, like you then begin to change and shift the culture. And not just within the organization, but within the world. That might be just my whole, like, you know, we are the world peace moment, like, you know, that we could do this with Web3. Like, you know, it might just be me being super optimistic, but it's in there. It's kind of amazing to me that we can even have that conversation now. That, like, we were talking about unity, like a lot of people always talk about unity and unifying, and, you know, but imagine like a real global unity created, like, you know, through Web3 space, and being able to do that through the Web3 space. So that's just actually, that's the huge difference between what we have right now with Web2 culture and what we could have with Web3. So that's a beautiful idea for me. Okay, so the next question we have right here, we're gonna bring this to the panel. This
Tam,
bit to Galley. Oh, I'm sorry.
Tam,
Go
I
ahead.
just really wanted to add really quick.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
just
go
really
ahead. Go ahead,
quickly.
Natalie.
You see, the thing about yeah, personalization, it's we look at it as a bad thing, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. So I work for some projects for companies in the travel sector, right? And I'll give you two examples of personalization, one that is good and one that is bad. If you go onto a website and you look at, and you're in Africa, they might give you a discount. So in that sense, personalization is not bad, right? But what I know they also do, if you look at that same ticket twice, they know that you want it more. So what happens is the next time you go there, they kind of gain you. They increase scarcity and they increase the price because they know, oh, you're coming back, you're coming, and so that's really tricky. So, you know, for me, I just feel, again, it's a nuanced discussion. I don't necessarily feel that it's like all good or bad. I feel what we need to do is find the middle ground, because myself, one of the things that I've done in my life, I've sold on Amazon, and you know, I think Mahasi, you made some really good points there, right? Amazon is kind of scary. It's a behemoth, right? And when I say Amazon, it's not just Amazon, Facebook as well. So when we're talking about Cambridge Analytica, as an Amazon seller, we're into groups, we talk to each other, and we try and find data on people. And at the time, they were talking about Cambridge Analytica, but what people weren't seeing is all the other stuff going on with dumps of data, definitely in contrary to GDPR, that were going around people. And it's like, wow. So when you see that side of things, right, that is really scary. And I think the majority of people really don't see that side of things, because even in Web3, you know, the way, just because the technology is designed in a certain way doesn't mean people are going to use it in that way. So besides the technology, what actually needs to happen is we need to educate people about the, you know, first of all, accuracy of data, completeness of data. But for goodness sakes, who you share it with. People are still throwing out their bank statements outside in the bin. That is insanity. Do you know what I mean? So besides the technology, we definitely need to look at the education piece. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Shirley, I so appreciate you for that as well, because I know personally, like, even though, but I think I'm kind of a better custody just because I am in the space, and because I'm listening to people who are telling me the things that I need to do, and, you know, and I'm taking heed to those things. But a lot of people that I run into on the daily basis are doing what you say, like, you know, they're throwing away their bank statements in the trash can and that kind of stuff. So sometimes I know for my personal stuff, like, I get a little bit caught up on, like, yo, man, it's gonna be so cool. We're gonna have our own stuff. We get to choose. We get to tell them if they can use our data and all that kind of stuff. Not realizing that a lot of people that are going to come to this space actually are still going to be very vulnerable because they're not doing those things that are
Their
necessary
own
and required.
behavior.
Yeah. So absolutely. So thank you so much for that, Shirley. Now we're going to go ahead to Big Gallery, and their question is, what milestones must be achieved to mark maturity in the crypto space? And this is just based on you guys, you know, experience and what you might feel and think. Kianga, you want to start us out with that one?
Well, I would say if you increase your profit share, that shows a milestone. I know that when we work with our customers, I mean, within 3 months, solutions that were provided to them, they made over $170,000 web, and that's a huge deal for you know, our clients, as a, you know, the tech that we provided to them and our solution. So it's just studying the market now. Shows you're getting basically the product, your mile, and where with your knowledge of crypto, because it's definitely something that's always, but you can also measure formula in place that do, in my opinion.
And I'll chime in also with regards to, you know, some of the things that we need to do to further improve and move and progress in this space. One of the issues I need everyone to understand that we are very much still early in this space. So, you know, a lot of the issues that, you know, Shirley brought up, for example, with regards to, you know, businesses and, you know, their opportunities and still being able to have the opportunity to use data to help them in growing their business. There still, I think, will be many ways that we'll be able to use Web3. I think now it's just going to be different in terms of how you go about receiving that data. But one of the main things that I think that will show a mark of maturity in the space is we need to find ways for it to become more frictionless. It's still a little difficult. There's still a large learning curve for people to understand just what cryptocurrency is, let alone understanding what Web3 is and what an NFT is. So education is extremely important, continuing to get the word out there with regards to, you know, what this space is and what it can do for all of us, but also finding opportunities where, or finding resources, I should say, that are going to provide less friction in getting into the space. Right now, for example, if you wanted to buy an NFT, you have to, you know, first get cryptocurrency. So you have to learn how to, you know, go to an exchange, you know, your fiat dollars to cryptocurrency. And then from there, you have to get your cryptocurrency and set up a online wallet, like a MetaMask, for example. Then, you know, transfer your cryptocurrencies to the MetaMask wallet. And then from there, learn how to connect your wallet to a marketplace to be able to purchase an NFT. So there's still a bit of friction in that process. So as soon as we can learn how to streamline it a little bit better, just like how now, you know, on Web2, we're able to just go straight directly to Amazon. Our credit card can be linked to our account and we can buy whatever we want with, you know, 2 clicks on the computer. So as soon as we find easier ways for us to be able to, you know, transfer and get into cryptocurrencies and then be able to use, you know, certain avenues to be able to get into NFTs and other Web3 platforms, then I think that's going to show a mark of maturity in the space.
And payment gateways too help, you know, with that. So you're not going through all those steps to purchase cryptocurrencies. So that's the point of having a payment gateway, is that you don't have to go through multiple avenues to get your cryptocurrency. You go through a trusted source, and then we're able to do the exchanges, and you eliminate having to do all those steps. So you don't have to have like we do work with certified users that are already using Binance, but how we do the exchanges, like we do all the work with doing the exchanges of money. So you eliminate having to go through all those steps.
Right. So what I'm
if I
hearing
may,
is,
Tam.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Mahasa,
So if I may, I think one of the major things that we need to see happen for us to say that we have gotten to a stage of maturity in Web3 is that we need to see some level of regulation across board. If not in every single country, at least in every single region. There needs to be some level of regulation, because regulation will create a level of certainty within the population, so that people will feel more confidence in the decision that they take to participate in Web3 or in the blockchain. While there's no regulation, or while the regulation is blurry or uncertain, people have no idea where to go. They don't know whether to stay in the industry or leave the industry if they're already in it. And if they're not already in it and they learn about it or are introduced to it, they don't know whether they should approach. So that's one angle. In addition to that, a lack of regulation tends to have the tendency to stifle innovation, because it means that less funding will come into the industry, and less funding means less innovation. And we need innovation to get Web3 from the baby steps that we've already spoken about, that Web3 and the blockchain and NFTs and all these technologies is currently in, or are currently in, to a more higher level of maturity. So sorting out the regulations and the legislation is extremely important. In addition to that, another point that I would bring forth as a key indicator of maturity within industry is if we're able to sort out the issues of privacy. The reason why is this: even in a scenario where we have all the countries having all their own laws on tech, on every single aspect of technology, or specifically on Web3, or specifically on the blockchain, you will see that more often than not, those laws are being created by people who don't necessarily understand these technologies well enough to legislate upon them in a manner that is favorable for innovation and technological advancements. And what that means is that we can expect some barriers to entry, if not more than we already have right now. And so what privacy will do for us in an ideal scenario is will ensure that in scenarios or in areas or territories where people are being prevented from participating in Web3 or participating in the development or advocacy for Web3, because of the territory that they're in, they will still be able to participate by using the necessary privacy tools and technologies that are available to them. A typical example would be VPNs. So for instance, imagine, say you have a really strong VPN technology system. We will be able to impute that system to protect those people who are in territories where the ability to participate is being limited, or where the technologies have been created to participate within the Web3 space are being corrupted or pegged somewhat. So I'll give a typical example. Last year, I think October or September, the government of Nigeria banned Twitter because Jack Dorsey deleted a tweet from the president that they believed was contrary to Twitter's policy, and so the government of Nigeria banned Twitter. But if you think about it, it was the government of Nigeria that didn't want Twitter anymore. The people of Nigeria were still very happy with Twitter, and so people started to download VPNs and use them to put a screen on their activities so that the telcos couldn't tell that they were using Twitter still. And because the telcos had no way of detecting this, the government couldn't hold the telcos responsible for the activity of their users. So VPN technology is extremely important in protecting privacy. And privacy is a key component, or should I say aspect of Web3. So those are just 2 points that I want to bring. I have 2 more, but I don't want to hog the space. So.
Oh no, Mahasan, thank you so much for your input. Like this helps keep the conversation going. So we definitely want, like, you know, the points that you make, so it gives other ladies and us here something to learn and us to talk about. So don't apologize.
Just want to jump in.
Yes, go ahead.
For me, I do come from a regulatory background, but I would hope, and I do feel that regulation definitely does provide clarity for both sides. That is absolutely true. However, I would prefer to see a framework of self-regulation based on principles, because sometimes they do that. Regulators will look out for 2 particular things: customer protection and market stability. Now, if you can self-regulate and you can promise that, and some people do, like Coinbase, I think they're CEX, Central Exchange, and they provide insurance just like a bank does. So personally, I don't really want my bank fiddling in my business that I'm doing in DeFi, because if I want CeFi, I can go to CeFi. I want a choice and I want a framework. I don't want regulation personally. That's just my opinion. So I do feel we can work on a framework that is decentralized, but we stick to a principles-based or principles-led ethos of market protection and market stability, which is actually what Mr. Powell said in the US, right? I think the crypto bill talked about that. So that is a good start. And I feel that those in this industry, anyone who has a mouthpiece or whatever, if you are talking about that, let's push for that, because we definitely want clarity. I definitely do agree that innovation can be stifled if we don't have that sustainability, unless you have a lot of money to pay lawyers. And right now we're looking at XRP, who are looking quite good in their case against the SEC, because they did seek legal advice and they were told that they weren't doing anything wrong. But not everyone has that budget. So if we can, again, use those 2 principles, then I feel we can hope for a framework that does not necessarily lock things down, but it does lead the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shirley. And I have to agree with that point. Like, I'm definitely, even just my understanding of what this space is supposed to be about, like, right? The fact that you have the ability to become a sovereign individual with this space. You have the ability to self-regulate, right? And then you also have the ability to create or connect with communities and businesses and other people who are creating in this space who hold those same types of values, right? And then in my ideal of how it could eventually like work out is where you have the people who are self-regulating, who understand the value in the space, and they are basically operating here, and they're bringing more people on board in this one area. And then you kind of have like what's going to be left of the wild wild west, like where people uh they because I mean, let's be honest, for this to really be like regulation to really make the type of changes it would have to be, we would have to really change the way that all governments interact, right? Because Web3 space, it's like the internet, like you can't stop it. So if I can't do it here, I could utilize the VPNs that Hassan was talking about, or the equivalent of that in a Web3 space, and still do those nefarious activities, still be in those spaces. So it's like it's not going to stop, right? What I think is the more important thing is that, well, that we do have some type of regulation, right? But even in that space, you're not going to be able to stop those bad actors from acting badly, within the Web3 space. So you're going to have to connect with the people that do move themselves in the way that you as a individual, you as a business, um, uh, that you move in the way that you move in the way that makes you feel comfortable, move in the way that is safe, like those types of things. You'll have to make sure that you're building that community, right? And so that that's where you go to do your interactions in business. These are a group of the people that you can trust, and that who are creating like smart contracts based because they want to have trust in this, and they're not out here attempting to undermine, I guess, the core values of what the space is here to create for a lot of people. And I feel like it's sovereignty, it's wealth, it's self-regulation, it's this ability to really control what people see and what people will control what people use of your data. Like these are some of the core foundations. And in order for that level of regulation to be able to make sure that people are regulating themselves, that's a huge feat. So right now, it's very important that you try to connect with people that are on that same level. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I really wanted to say, so again, back to the education piece. Like I said, I used to work in banking. I'm familiar with the legal, I'm familiar with the regulation, I'm familiar with the FIUs, the financial intelligence units. They used to weed out, let's say, undesirable behavior. But then again, my bank calls me and then they're using voice recognition. I don't want it. And I've told them to take it off. Oh no, and they put it back, right? And then I tell them, if you don't do this, I'm going to report you. Oh, they took it off. So it doesn't matter whether you're regulated. It always boils down to the customer and how it's called buyers beware. We ourselves, the consumers, need to be 100% on it, because people don't get it right all the time. And if they did, there wouldn't be these things like PPI, redressing schemes, it's mis-selling, right? We got to be smart. We've got to educate the people around us about what's going on and how to, and actually current case law does support a lot of it, right? This is a growing side, the technology, but current case law gives a lot of customer protection already. So what we need to do is educate people about the technology and the current statutory or case law that does help them, that does support them, that does protect them. But one thing for sure, for goodness sakes, if you get a random link in a Discord, please don't click on it.
Don't click it. Also, and that brings me to our intermission. I'm going to tell you guys in intermission, those in the chat, if you see anybody that is saying post, click a link. Do not click on any links. We do not support anybody, okay, that is in here.
We are not minting early.
We're not doing that. Right? So we're going to go to a quick intermission, but thank you, ladies, so much for the conversation. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, Winnie Bear. Today is a really special day in the history of this project. Stacks 2.0 is going live today.
This was a year ago. So much has happened since then. So, let's take a trip down memory lane.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Stacker Chat. The city of Miami voted this week to actually utilize their Miami Coin proceeds, which is over $4.5 million.
Try to absorb like everything that has happened over the last year or so, which by the way, this year, I probably would have said it on some other venue as well. Like, I think when I really look back, like there's so much to be grateful about. Like it's probably like one of the best years for this ecosystem. I don't think I would have asked for anything more from this year. Hey everyone.
All right.
Wow, is all I can say. Man, what a discussion.
Yes.
It gave us everything, right? It gave us everything. It gave us that deep discussion that we really need to have about Web3, about decentralization, about, how we as humans participate in this space, right? It gave us everything. And our chat was blowing up.
Right. I'm looking at some of the chat here and I'm like, yeah, like what does that mean for like, decentralization and like all the great. So thank you guys for making sure you're keeping the chat going. Make sure you are adding to the conversation here. You can also join our Discord, www.womenofblockchain.org/Discord. Join the Discord. That's where we're going to keep these conversations like this going and really get a deep dive and really get the multiple sides of this space, because I really so appreciate Shirley and all of her inputs that are really talk about the other things, because I know, like I said, I like to be like thinking about, oh my God, the roses and like, this is great, the rose colored glasses, like they say, right? And me knowing like the things I know, I'm like, oh, this could be great for this. But then there's also all the things to think about, like how important education is in this space, how important our privacy is, and how important protecting it, and how important it is to understand that we're not there yet, right? And that we're still building this space, and that there's still potential. Just as there's good potential, there's also the other side of that. And so we have to be mindful, and when we're bringing this education and talking about these topics, absolutely. So
yeah, but you know what? I have to say, I agree with Mahasan. With it's good to have a concept of what we want to build, right? And knowing the limitations and hashing out some things that need to be in place, right? Now with the regulation, I'm like, that's kind of like a broad statement there, right? We're trying to get away from regulation that's going to prevent certain things. And like the comment section was, asking like, what regulation? Talk a little bit more about that. I wish we had time, right? I wish we had time that we can have these ladies like go into thorough discussion about the regulation, about what type, right? My biggest thing is making sure that the right type of regulations come into this space, right?
And I think that is echoed.
An individual that says that we have to self-govern it, and make sure that the regulation comes from within and not from outside in, right? Because when it's outside in, then you're kind of putting us in a box, right? I do agree there needs to be regulation. And that was a really deep, I mean, we could spend like an hour alone on that, right?
Yeah, just on that topic, easy. Absolutely.
And I have to say, Kianga, she brought real life, right? She said, this is what we're doing. This is how we're approaching this, and it's working for us. And I love the milestones that she highlighted, right? as an entrepreneur, as a person that's in this space and really trying to submerge themselves into Web3. This is the vision. This is the realization, the realistic aspect of what she's going through. And then now it's like, let's build on that. Oh my God. Yeah, right. And
these are definitely conversations we want to have.
And we were just like, whoa, these late men, what a pen. What a pen.
Yes, I cannot thank them enough. Really great.
Oh my God.
And if you're like me, you out here like,
go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm like, if you're like me, you're out here like, boom, like, and like, I'm taking my notes. So like, I'm really telling people, if you're tuning in, if you're watching this now, even if you're watching on the replays, make sure you take your notes and go and do your own research on some of these topics. Like a couple of things that I was thinking about was like about what the unifications in the cultural differences, like if we do come to this like kind of unified money systems, right? Unified regulation, like what does that mean for our culture? Like to me, it's a great thing, right? Because you are from a cultural background that maybe you didn't get that much. People weren't understanding what you go through culturally, right? And now this actually can create an opportunity where you can have a voice and you can be heard and you can create the space and not in a stereotypical way, but in something that really speaks to you and how it can be backed up by this entire idea of like, knowing that the information that came out is from you, like, right, and who you are in this space, and that it can be tracked back to, oh, this person has this type of heritage, so of course, like, it makes sense to them culturally, like, so those types of things. It's amazing that every time I have a conversation and every time I come here on a Wednesday with the ladies who join me for a panel, that I am never disappointed. I'm never disappointed. I'm never disappointed. I'm always learning something, always doing something new. So
if you're not awake now, you're definitely awake, right? And awake, is just synonymous with the fact that, we're building in this space, right? We're creating, we're building, and women are involved, right? We're getting a lot of comments about how people from all across the globe are really happy that there's something like this, right? That's showcasing and giving a platform to various women, across the globe to come and talk about this topic as well as other topic about blockchain, right? Because a lot of people assume that it's a male-dominated space, and it's not. Like we're coming, we're building, we got thoughts, we got things to say, right? We want to contribute to how we build this community, this ecosystem. And I'm just loving, oh my God, like you, I was taking a mental note. I was trying to keep track of everything that I need to do on my end, but also like, yes.
The whole time, like,
yes. Mind with today's morning panelists. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. And I just want to thank you, Yinka, again for coming up with this idea of bringing us women here together so that we can have this conversation, because it was like, your brainchild to get us all together, because we are valuable in this space and we are creating, like you said, and we are the ones who are thinking these things. And just as much as men might be having the conversations, like we're doing it too, and it's important to highlight us because we're in the development stage of creating this world the way we want to see it. And we will be in the forefront of it. Like, we will be here. And so, thank you. And also thank you to all of our sponsors who also saw your vision and like, they want to support this because they see that it is important. Like, and so that would be Block, Hero that we saw the commercial from earlier, Copper Seed Safe, and what was the last one, Yinka? I was Fantasy. So thank you to all of our sponsors as well who see that what we're doing here and understand the value and decided to invest in us. And thank you again. So I'm so excited. Like
I'm so excited too. Now we are waiting for our next speaker, and we're hoping that she joins us soon. But in the meantime, I do like to bring the three ladies that are still here on stage, maybe to further the conversation, because there were quite a few questions in the chat that relates to a lot of the things that they heard from these ladies. So I would like to bring them back up and maybe focus on just answering those questions in the comment section. And then we will segue into our last panelist and have them come and join us. Yo, I'm just excited. This has been thank you, ladies.
All right. So we're gonna bring these ladies back up. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Shirley Mahasan and Kianga, welcome, ladies. Okay, so we're gonna focus this section on the comments from the chat. So we're just gonna get over here 1 second. There we go. All right, so we have the first question. Let me see. Kind of have to scroll up, like I said, what's happening. Here we go. So Bit Gallery asks, does consolidation threaten the decentralized movement, specifically antitrust challenges, Larva Labs selling large NFT properties, RTFKT selling IP to corporations, HNS selling domain blockchain to W2 company, etc. So before we get into the actual answer to the question, I am going to need some definitions. So is there, Mahasan, would you be able to help define the Larva Labs selling large NFT properties? Like, what does that mean exactly?
Okay. So essentially, this question is talking about issues of monopoly or monopolistic behavior by corporations. Okay. And the person asking is trying to get information about our opinion on whether we believe that Web 3.0 will affect monopolies and antitrust issues. So the current scenario we have right now with Web 2.0 is one where we have the likes of, and I'm just mentioning tech giants at random here, where we have the Microsofts that accumulated so much market share within their space that the government had to step in and force them to break the organization up into pieces. And that was about 10 years ago. I stand to be corrected. Then we have organizations like Google, who have essentially monopolized the whole search space to the extent where we actually have some search mini giants out there that do a lot of work. And some of the work they do is work that organizations like Google don't even do. But Google has either bought them out or silenced them with using the law, so that even though they're still operating, we don't see their activity. What we see, everything we see from them is actually coming through Google, so we don't know it's them. Another typical scenario is Google Maps and companies like Waze. Now, Waze is still in existence, but Google Maps has taken over their IP and everything. And so all the technology that Waze is using, we are getting it, or we're able to use it only through Google Maps. So these are types of examples that I would bring forward in this particular issue. And my answer would be this, that Web 3.0 will help, if not completely eradicate, break or weaken monopolies. And the reason why is because, my apologies, the reason why is because Web 3.0 is designed to be individualistic to a large extent, but it's also designed to be community-based. What that means is that because in a community, the individual has representation or is recognized or is empowered, as opposed to in a corporation where the individual has no voice. It is the centralized ruling body or governing body that has the voice. So in that scenario, in a scenario where communities have the power, where the individual is empowered, the likelihood of monopolies is drastically reduced. Because when you think about it, for you to have a monopoly is essentially a situation where you have the minority ruling over the majority. That's exactly what it is. It's one organization or a handful of organizations that have taken over a whole industry and are able to therefore dictate the practices, the prices, and the availability of goods and services within that industry. But in the case of Web3, or in the case where you don't have monopolies, you have individuals. Because in Web3, individuals will be able to participate with the same level of visibility and access as a corporation would be able to participate. And what that means is that there'll be no room for monopolies. And in every case where a corporation, for instance, might want to establish a monopoly, So let's look at those corporations as like whales. What would happen is that the things like the decentralized autonomous organizations that would be created and used to strengthen the community would come in and overrule the ability of a corporation or of a whale to rule over the majority. So in a decentralized autonomous organization, what you would have is the ability for each and every individual to have a say or have a voice through their voting rights, which they acquire by buying into that decentralized autonomous organization through whatever means that is available to do so. So in a Web3 scenario, which is a scenario where everything, whether it's the information or the technology, is decentralized and distributed and anonymous and private, the existence of monopolies would be drastically reduced compared to what we have right now in Web 2.0. Let me stop there.
Hi, Tams.
Yes, go ahead. Please chime in for us.
Hey, yeah, no, so that I was kind of really intrigued to hear that Bored Ape had actually acquired Lava Labs. So I'm just assuming the question was why, right? And is that a worryful monopoly? So I was thinking, wow, Bored Ape, you've got the Bored Ape, the Mutant Apes, the what is it called? Kennel Club, and then the chemistry thing as well, right? These guys used to be competitors, and in fact CryptoPunks, which is the guys who created created CryptoPunks, they were the first guys, they were the market leaders and all that kind of stuff, and they've done really well. However, if you look at the sales volumes, if you look at even on CoinMarketCap, you'll see that actually Bored Ape is completely wiped out. Like literally, I'm not going to say that, but they have beaten the performance of CryptoPunks. And I feel that is a trend that will continue. I think Bored Apes have done really well with the community, the people they have, the proliferation. They did that whole they were against the bonding curve. They even allow a lot in terms of what you can do with the copyright. And I think that is really got for them a very passionate community. So actually, when I got the news, I was just looking, and apparently, so Lava Labs actually sold their collection to Bored Ape. It was an agreement between the two projects. And the reason they did that is because they appreciate their strength. And their strength is they like to be the innovators with new technologies. What they struggle is the maintenance of that utility. So Love Lab's always been criticized for lack of utility, whereas Bored Ape started out, I guess, the four guys, and they've just managed to create something that no one really, I think they didn't even know. So they agreed and said, guys, look, we see what you're doing. Why don't you just take over? And that's what's happened. And I think that's pretty beautiful. And I actually don't feel that that's a bad thing. I feel that Bored Ape have definitely proven that they can go beyond the initial sale and actually can continue to create value and all that kind of stuff. So that's the background story to that. And I think, and I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, even now, I bought into an ape yesterday, but I bought into an Arctic ape, and the guy who created it is a Bored Ape. And that's when I talk about how they've enabled their community members, their owners, to build their own. I just think that's awesome. So I'm happy to be part of that.
And I was saying, like, I think. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you cut out.
Extended part of the.
Hello, the volume is a bit. Your audio is a bit.
No,
yeah,
I'm done.
we kind of missed the last part of that because you're kind of going in and out. I thought it might have been me. I was like, hold on. But but what I was hearing you say is that while these companies might have the ability to, or NFT projects or whatever might have the ability to, say, absorb somebody else, be it through acquisition or however they're doing that, the fact that they still are that there's still like each individual that decides to participate, right? In the way that Mahas was talking about, it is very focused on the individual. So it's really about how many of those individuals that you appeal to for whatever product or service that you're offering in this Web3 space. They still maintain their ability to walk away from it, right? If it doesn't serve them, and in doing that, it kind of creates, I would say, like, there's never really a way to really create, I guess, a whole monopoly, because if you lose the people's faith, then in the Web3 space, like you won't, like, they'll go somewhere else, like, right? They can take all their information, all their stuff, and they can move it into another place, even create their own, right? And so I kind of heard, I think that's what I want to make sure I'm understanding that right, as far as what Mahasan is saying, and then like with this kind of example, that's kind of what we're saying, right?
Yes. So in addition to what I said before, Tam, yes, you're quite right. That is what I was trying to say. But in addition to that, I want to also mention the fact that the decision to buy CryptoPunks for Bored Apes was an economic decision. Essentially, the Bored Ape community are doing everything possible that they can to make their community or their project the most profitable, the #1 community for NFTs in the world. And if you check the ranking, you see that they're not necessarily #1 right now. They still have 1 or 2 different projects that are ahead of them. And so these are just some moves that they're making to make to strengthen their community and make sure that they are the #1, or at least that they become sometime in the near future the #1 NFT project in existence. Because the stronger their community or higher their ranking, the more expensive the NFTs will be, which means that they will be serving the needs or requirements of their community members. So it was more than anything else a community, an economic decision on their part. Just like the decision to turn their project into a movie or comic, or to distribute equity or commissions to their users is. It's an economic decision. It's not necessarily a decision to benefit the space, more a decision to benefit the company, because the happier the community is, the more wealthy the company is going to be at the end of the day.
Right. Absolutely. I totally get that. Okay. Thank you for that, Mahasan. All right. So, we have another question, and the question is from Duchess of Vilsburg, and she wants to know, what kind of regulation is okay in DeFi? What's the runway you can live with? That is
can you go over that question again?
What kind of regulation is okay in DeFi, and what's the runway you can live with?
Okay, so I'm not quite clear on the question of what the runway you can live with is, but I can answer the question very easily on the first one. What kind of regulation is okay or preferable for DeFi? I'm a lawyer, and I can tell you very honestly, for me, zero regulation is the ultimate situation, is the ideal one. Zero regulation. I think Shirley was the one who spoke about how self-regulation. And I'll tell you very honestly, the Web3 and the blockchain and the whole decentralized world is better off. The ideal scenario is one where we are self-regulated, where smart contracts govern all the activities within NFTs, and smart contracts themselves, that smart contract technology is evolved to work in other spaces. So not just when it comes to NFTs, but when it comes to decentralized finance and cryptocurrencies, when it comes to launch pads and ICOs, so that they are inbuilt, because a smart contract is essentially a contract in every sense of the word, because it's terms and conditions. So if you have a system for converting real life contracts to contracts within the digital space, which is essentially a code that serves as a contract, that is able to tackle all the nuances within whatever sub-industry you're talking about, whether it's NFTs or decentralized finance or just cryptocurrencies or Web3 as a whole. If you're able to evolve the contract system or the smart contract system to be able to cover all those instances, all those nuances, then we can have a system, a Web3 system or a blockchain system or an NFT system or any system that the blockchain industry disrupts. So you can have a system in that industry where everything is self-regulated, where you don't need lawyers to come in, except when you're dealing with very, very unique situations where you couldn't possibly expect the smart contract to be able to cover all the scenarios that could occur. So if you could have such a scenario, that for me would be an ideal situation. But in the absence of the ideal, because you never do have the ideal, what I would say is the best scenario for us is a scenario where we have regulation that simply covers the issue of legality and allows us to navigate by ourselves in every other aspect. So regulation that determines legality, of course. So if the law is saying, okay, cryptocurrencies are legal in this territory or not, simple and short, just define legality, and then we will play everything else by ourselves. What legality will do is determine whether the currency can be used in a particular territory, and also determine, and if it can be used in that territory, what that means is that it can be taxed. So those are two things that it would, yeah. So if it can be used in this territory, then it can be taxed. And if it can be taxed, then everything around it can be taxed. So essentially determining whether it can be, whether it is legal in that territory will determine whether it can be taxed. And the third thing is to determine, or should I say the second thing is to determine, is whether it can become or is or can be treated like legal tender. So for me, that would be an ideal scenario. Anything over and above that will be usurping the industry or trying to disturb. I wouldn't say disrupt, because disrupt is a positive word within the industry, but disturb the industry, because it wouldn't be working towards our benefits or towards creating an enabling environment. It would be working to stifle the industry. So that's my personal opinion on the matter.
And currently, though, President Biden has passed in the infrastructure bill that they will be taxing or having cryptocurrency traders file a 1099. So they found their way to tax cryptocurrencies and people who use that type of technology. And also, too, I just believe that it's just better to have things broken down in regions, because every section, every area would have their own fees and own, money, or their money exchanges would be different. So I think that it should be regulated by region. I think that would be more helpful. And West Africa, of course, is definitely a market that doesn't, that has so much potential to work those things out. And I just think it's, another thing too that they've also created is that they're trying to create a cryptocurrency that is equivalent to the US dollar. So,
yeah, like
if I may say so.
I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry, somebody else wanted to speak. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. My PC crashed, so I apologize for my NFT. Just representing. Hello. So actually, cryptocurrencies are taxed. Crypto is treated like Bitcoin. When you sell it, you pay capital gains tax. That's already happening, right? It's actually very, very tricky. So that is already happening. I don't really feel, and that's the thing, I feel that there are already things that are there that already determine this, right? It's just how do we take what is there and match it to the new technology. I actually feel the gap is not that big. So I feel part of that regulation or whatever framework will be saying, just like what Wyoming have done with the DAO governance and their understanding of it, they've given a framework, and I love that. I think Dubai has also just done that. Again, I'm not necessarily for regulation, because regulation, with my experience in the banking world, it ended up, instead of catching criminals, it ended up catching people unintentionally. You get a lot of false positives in the screening. It doesn't necessarily work out for us, and I'm talking as a customer, right? So again, I feel regulation is not, I just feel framework and clarity. Right now, crypto is treated as property. So if you own that property and you sell it, whatever you make, let's say it's 100,000, if you make 150, if you sell it for 150, you're paying tax on that 50, and that's capital gains tax. So I just wanted to provide some clarity there, because it does exist already.
If I may say, what we have right now is some level of regulation from one or two countries, and very few at that. That's what we have right now. So for instance, in my country, we don't have any regulation or laws regarding cryptocurrencies. We haven't even decided, we haven't even come to the point of discussion where we're trying to determine whether cryptocurrency is a form of money or what exactly it is. We haven't come anywhere close to it. The government is simply refusing to discuss the issue. And okay, so we're pretty happy with that right now. We're hoping they're going to remain confused.
That's why much success in Benin Republic, because it's not governed and because it's not regulated. But Nigeria, though, takes it a step further and they just block all cryptocurrency transactions. So I just think that, you know, there's an area for, it's actually a positive thing because you can have like a lot of reform in those areas. So it could be a gain for people there. It could be a benefit.
Okay, so once again, I beg to differ. A scenario where people say, okay, so because I don't understand what you're saying, I'm just going to block my ears and not listen to you, is not a good scenario. And that's what we have right now. What the government of Nigeria did was not a step further, it was a step back, because essentially what they did was, okay, we don't understand you, we can't control you, we don't even understand where you came from, so you know what, we're not dealing with you. We're just going to ignore your existence. That is not a step forward, it is a step backward. Sadly, the scenario that would be ideal is one where the government acknowledged and recognized the industry and took the time to sit down with the members of the industry and define what the industry is, define Web3, define the blockchain, define cryptocurrencies, and put them in a category. What would be bad is if they put them in a category based on their desire to tax them because there's a lot of money in the industry, or they put them in a category based on their desire to control them because it is an industry that they literally cannot control, as opposed to the rest of the economy or the financial system. So those are the things that would be bad. But if they worked with the industry, with the members of the industry, and were able to create a definition of Web3 or the blockchain or cryptocurrencies that is in line with the current circumstances or the current situation or intentions of the industry, and takes into consideration the ability of the industry to evolve and morph at a very fast rate over time. If they did that, then it would be a positive step. Now, what will not happen is a scenario where there will be no regulation whatsoever. Right. We're only going to have good regulation or bad regulation, meaning regulation that will help promote innovation and progress in the industry, or regulation that is going to stifle it. So you talked about how in the banking industry, during your based on your own experience, the regulations that were created more often than not were capturing the wrong people, the good people, the people who were minding their business or were actually using whatever space they were in to do whatever it is that space was meant to do. So bad regulation is going to do that. It's going to continue to capture the people who are adding value within the economy and capture the people who are actually using the technology to benefit the country or the territory or the continent, and so on and so forth. But good regulation will promote the industry, will encourage innovation, will open up the markets, will reduce monopolies, will bring more money to government, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know. Let me try and stop disagreeing with you.
I'd like to respond to that. I don't believe there's anything as good regulation or bad regulation. It's just your ability to enforce it. And again, I'm talking from first-hand experience of trying to do it. The other thing is the governments are against crypto because governments serve, or at least the central banks serve, two purposes. One is to print money, which is to control the amount of money in the system. And the other is to enforce interest rates. And they can't do that with cryptocurrency. So as much as we, like or dislike, that is a valid thing, because if you look at this pandemic, right, if the government hadn't stepped in, we would probably have had a crash, and we would probably have had the civil unrest and all that kind of stuff. So I think, again, it's a nuanced discussion. There's no good, bad. I just don't believe that. It's just way too complex for that, because money, like, had we not done the stimulus checks and with the unemployment, and it would have just been an absolute human catastrophe, an absolute. Stop that with by printing money. It's not a good thing. It has led to inflation.
Okay,
we lost you again,
sorry,
Shirley.
I keep getting a
We lost
call.
you again, Shirley.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. Yeah, so I do feel that is something to consider going forward, and that is always going to stand in the way of cryptocurrencies being like legal tender, globally. Because if you can't control money, if you can't control, what I would say to us as consumers is diversify. Cryptocurrency, if all your money's in crypto, that's madness. If all your money's in the bank, that's madness. If all your money's in gold, that's mad. Like, just learn to diversify: gold, silver, crypto, shares, do everything, just because they have different relationships. Normally when gold goes up, crypto goes down. There's also been a convergence in crypto and the standard markets, the S&P, and you know what I mean? And that's because big whales are now owning more of it, so they're able to control it. They've done that over a period of time. I'd say over the last years, they've been buying and buying and buying, and now that is what has happened, and that is why they're more open now to have that conversation about crypto. So we need to kind of see where this is going long term. I don't feel it's that good, bad. I just don't think we live in that world. It's just too complicated.
It's also a matter of perspective. You've spoken about things like the inflation rates and the impact it would have had upon economies after the lockdowns, but you failed to recognize the fact that the stimulus checks only came in wealthy countries. All the poor countries, nobody got stimulus checks there. Their governments didn't have any money to give out. Things like interest rates only have an impact in wealthy Western countries. It doesn't happen in Africa. Nobody in Africa cares about interest rates. It's an American or maybe a European thing. It's not, and I don't think that people in South America or Asia consider issues like interest rates as well. My point is this, that Web3, the blockchain, cryptocurrencies are about global movements. They're not about local movements. They're not about the particularities or the nuances of any particular region or country. It is about a global movement. It is about the movement of mankind from a centralized to a decentralized world, from a physical to a digital realm, and then to space. There's where we are going to as a human race, as a race in this. We're not just skipping around within the sphere of our financial system or our economic system or our political or geopolitical systems. It's more than that. The movement is not just a movement of a few people. It is a movement of a race. And the pace of that movement is the pace of the human race. Our ability to regulate or to progress is the ability of the human race to regulate the industry and the progress of the human race. What I'm trying to say is this: when we're talking about Web3, when we're talking about the blockchain and cryptocurrencies, I believe that it is extremely important that we try and ensure that our perspective is more global, because if we localize it, then we miss out on a lot of the major issues that we need to put into consideration, because we cannot put everything into consideration when we're tackling these issues. When we talk about regulation, it is regulation across the board. Every single country must have regulation, but that regulation should have a level of uniformity, which is why I limited my idea of what an ideal regulation would be to identifying cryptocurrencies and legalizing them and then taxing them. Anything over and above that, looking at the interest rates at which you want to tax them, or at the percentage at which you want to tax them, or the interest rates that they might be impacted by or might draw, would be too nuanced, too specific to any particular region. We have to keep the perspective.
Yeah, listen, I don't really feel this is really a back and forth thing. It's not really that important. The fact is, central banks control. It's a fact. That's what central banks do. And I'm not talking local, because central banks are global. Like Bank of England is central. Like, yeah. So this is not, I'm making it up. It's how the economy works, right?
Yeah,
And
actually,
let's face it, regulation is not uniform. That's why people go to Malta. That's why people go to Seychelles. It's just not realistic. They're countries who want to be havens, and they are, like Seychelles. So I just think, it's really not that important. But what we need to understand, because I don't think it's back and forth conversation. It's just not worth it. It's the fact. That's the way the world works. So actually, in actual fact, governments are scared of this. And that is why if you look at the CDBC, there's a link that shows you every country that has a CDBC. In fact, what I'm ashamed about is in Ghana,
CBDC.
they say central bank digital currency.
Yes, CBDC, not CDBC.
You might have misheard me. All right, CBDC, yeah. So basically, they said it's not a cryptocurrency. It is a cryptocurrency, because in my country it's on Hyperledger. I think in Nigeria it's on Hyperledger as well. The e-naira is actually live. So the central banks are concerned about that. And they have a right to be concerned about that, because if we're going to move forward, we need to think of everything that affects this, not just, hey, this is great for us. And we have to answer the really important questions, because things might go bad, things can go good, but we need to think about everything that could happen, so that at least when we're regulating, or at least when we're putting frameworks around this, we've considered things rather than miss things out. Because if we miss things out, that's where you get the blind spots. That's not good for anybody. So that's my point.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut us off right here, ladies. But this has been a great conversation. And please join us in our Discord. We can continue this conversation more, because this is just the very tip of the iceberg. And I have to say, like, Shirley, I hear you, I understand you, because with everybody else's dollar being pegged to the United States dollar, inflation is everybody's problem. Like, you might not think about it, but it is your problem. It's your country's problem. Right. So I just want to say thank you, though, for ladies. Thank you, ladies, so much for having this conversation with us today. Please, if you would like to connect with any of our speakers from the day, they're gonna give you a quick outro, let you know where to follow them, how to find them, and then join us on our Discord. So first, go ahead, Mahasin, give us a quick 30-second outro.
So thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of the international to be part of this conference. I really appreciate the opportunity. If you want to find me, you can find me on LinkedIn as Mahasin El Quadri. You can find me on other social media platforms as the Amino of Crypto or the Amino of Crypto Official. If you're interested in talking about Web3, Metaverse, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, that's what I do. So please hit me up. I'm very interested in talking to you or talking with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mahasin. Go ahead, Shirley.
What can I say? What a time to be alive. I'm excited. And I want to have conversations with every one of you out there, and not just about crypto. For me, crypto is one thing, but there's so many other ways to secure yourself, to secure your bag, to secure your life, your financial security, your mental health. We should definitely keep the conversation going as women, because we need it the most. So tell a friend, tell a priest, tell a police person, just get everybody in the conversation. Let's keep it going. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Shirley. And you still with us, Kianga?
Yes, I'm still here.
All right.
I thank you so much for the opportunity to share just my experience with this whole new world that I'm in. And it's actually the meaning of, so it's definitely something that I'm very passionate about. And I am also a copywriter, and a journalist, so you can Google my name and see a lot of my works. But you can find me on Facebook, Kianga J. Moore, and also my website that I did will be up. I would say in a couple of days it'll be live, so sunbeamsolution.com. And you can definitely find me on LinkedIn as well. So, and you'll see me posting also on Instagram too, my adventures in Africa. So thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you so much, ladies. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed this conversation on today. I really just appreciate you all taking the time out and coming through and supporting us and really sharing your ideas and your viewpoints on this Web3 space and business. So thank you again. We do look forward to hearing from you guys. Again, if you're watching the replays or if you are just joining us, you can connect with any of our moderators, myself, speakers, the keynote speakers, all of them, you can connect with them in our Discord. So go ahead and you also get more information, but make sure that you are following us on our Discord. So right now we are going to go ahead and take a quick break. And in that time, we are going to, then we're going to continue on the discussion. We have another panel discussion that's going to come up. And this one is also one that you do not want to miss. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Wow.
Yo.
Man, what a discussion. We brought the ladies back and they were ready. They were ready and the conversation got heated. But it was a deep conversation that needed to be had. And I'm glad that they were able to answer some of the questions that the ladies had, that they had from the audience members. Wow. All I can say, man, this has been a great Worldwide Wednesday.
Right. All I can say is that I'm happy that the conversation went to like really getting, like you said, really deep and getting deeper into these conversations. I hear a lot of the top level conversations, you know, about how people are developing in this space, and it's great. Like, you know, it's really great to hear. But a lot of times, the more research I do, I also realize that there is so much more that we have to consider. Like we have to think about what decentralization really looks like if we're talking about having regulation. Like we have to talk about whether or not we are able to really, are we going to really be able to say that we're decentralized and still, like, counting on entities that aren't, you know? And then what responsibility, if we say we want to move from that, what responsibility does that give to us as just individuals, as businesses, as the way that we interact with money? Like, what does this really mean? And it's a nuanced conversation. It's huge, and it literally it touches everything, and so we have to continue to have these conversations, and we have to continue to put out the information and just really knowledge share with everyone in our communities so that we can continue to build this space. Because remember, we are building. We are building. It's not set just because we have the same type of regulation that you might find right now doesn't mean that that's the way it has to be. We can change it, and that's the thing that keeps me like really tethered to this space, of the fact that we can change it. We can affect it. Like, just you, not you having to be a corporation, not you having to be. You can affect it, and so that's the biggest takeaway, and the best thing I liked about the conversation.
Yeah, and it's a testimony to how impactful and meaningful this space is to all of us, right? We all are coming from different walks of life, different background, different countries, right? I mean, Nigeria versus Ghana going on there. We have Benin in the middle and Detroit, it was good. But seriously, like how this thing is impacting us, and how, we also need to move away from what they tell us to what we're trying to build, right? And everybody has an input, should have an input into ultimately what we create with this Web3, with this ecosystem, with this decentralization. And I think, it all starts with the discussions. We can't be followers in this space. We got to be able to give our input. So I love it. I love it. I'm going to leave and let you introduce the next panel discussion.
Okay. So our next panel discussion, we are going to bring up, ladies, in this panel discussion we're going to focus on DAOs. So we talked a little bit, we defined what a DAO was with our previous panel. Now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into kind of what that could mean for us in the Web3 space. So we're going to go ahead and bring our panelists to the stage. There we go. All righty. I'm going to give them each a time to introduce themselves, let you all know who they are and what they do in the space. All righty. There we are. Welcome, 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 ladies.
Hey.
Good morning.
All right. Good morning. So happy to have you all with us this morning. Super excited about this topic because I don't know a lot about DAOs, okay? I do know that what we define it as, how it's a decentralized autonomous organization. And that's pretty much the basis of where it goes. And so be prepared to talk to me, as well as the rest of our audience members might have a little bit more, or even a little bit less knowledge on that. But we are very excited to get this conversation going. So first we're going to go and start with our introductions. So I'm going to start with you, Natalie. Are you there? Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Allegedly. A little early in California, but
I know I just did that drive back to Texas. So
traditionally I'm a culture producer, so I've been producing events and projects and festivals centering around creators and amplifying and funding creatives as well, in other ways. However, I've been in NFTs since 2016. Sorry, lost track of time. And also been involved in DAOs for the last well over a year and some change. And so was very much here in its nascent stages. And prior to that was involved in a number of cooperatives, and built some cultural networks as well. And so been around the block.
Excellent. Excellent. Welcome, Natalie. And Jacqueline, go ahead and introduce yourself for us.
Can you hear me?
Ooh. A little feedback, but we got you now.
Yeah. So Jackie Raidball, I am an attorney based in Dayton, Ohio. I work with a law firm that's based in Colorado, Denver, and Boulder, mostly with team members all over the country. And we are focused on social entrepreneurship and shared equity models of ownership. So a good percentage of our clients are cooperatives, multi-stakeholders, and cooperatives that work on various platform cooperatives that work on various sectors. And the past couple of years, we have been working with DAOs that have decided to adopt a legal entity form and have mostly chosen to adopt the cooperative legal form. So we assist them in that. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you for joining us. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Gupta, can you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Hi guys, so this is Richa tuning from India, and it's certainly not the morning. It's evening right now, so I'm excited. Yet I'm so excited. So I'm having a little different background. I am an architect and a design technologist. So what exactly we are doing is like we're trying to figure out how to use DAOs in architecture, basically how to use blockchain in architecture certain way that it helps in whole construction industry and like the whole fraternity of AEC, which we say architecture, engineering, and construction. So here is what we're going to talk about, and the DAO is known as ArchiDAO. Yeah, and I'm excited to be here, and yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you all, ladies. I know that this being an international conference, we're dealing with these ladies and you all are on different time zones. And I just appreciate you so much for being here because I know it's not easy, but we all recognize that it's important. And so thank you for being here. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the first question. And the first question is, what is a DAO? What is a DAO? Any of you ladies can go ahead and unmic and give us your answer what a DAO is.
So I say it like, it is one for all and all for one. So basically, it's the power of your commitment, the power of your belief, and the diversity of the minds, basically. So it opens up a lot of possibilities when we talk about DAO. It is a shared goal that everybody wants to hit together and wants to lead on a certain note, which is basically we call it as, code is law, or we can call it as something like smart contracts. So basically, everything is governed by everyone and still by none. So I don't want to confuse, but that's how I keep it for the excitement.
Okay, okay, that I understand it, but I also I guess in this space, one of the questions is like, is there a uniform even understanding of what a DAO is? Like, is there a uniform understanding, or is this kind of like what you feel like might be something different from what somebody else feels a DAO is, or should this kind of be the uniform understanding? Natalie.
Okay. I think there's, because we're still in our even though DAO's been around for a minute, I still think we're in our nascent stages and people trying to figure out the plethora of definitions that could exist. I would say if somebody held me hostage and wouldn't give me my cereal back as I'm eating right now, I would say DAOs are essentially a digital native organization. As Ms. Gupta said, they particularly have like a mission, goal, project, or something that they're working in tandem to achieve. And so, but this looks very different from DAO to DAO. Like I'm in several DAOs and primary, like a core contributor to a number of them, and they all look very different. Yeah, for some people that can be hard to grasp, but I would say, yeah, they're digitally native organizations operating to achieve one goal, a mission, project. And so that's kind of how I would summarize that. But some people may have very different offshoots definitions of that, depending on like what sphere of the space they're coming from.
Oh, okay. So my follow-up question to that was like, what? Well, then how can it look different? Because I'm familiar with, or slightly familiar with, how it's a group of people and they're trying to achieve one goal, right? And that sounds like, I don't know, like a basketball team to me. Like, right, there's a group of people, they're trying to achieve the goal of winning the game. So how does it look different, like specifically?
The mission may be different. The approach definitely will always be different. In say, I'm just blabbing off DAO's Seed Club. Their whole mission is to help accelerate creative communities and social tokens. But that looks very different than maybe even their sub DAO, which I'm a part of, M Club, which we're kind of building a creator accelerator, but our approach is like much different. We're focused on individuals. We also have a smaller group of people that are pretty much the radical folks, and our kind of thought process actually differs. We don't have some DAOs have long, extreme kind of frameworks. If you look at their Notions, which is a platform where people are storing all their documents, it looks very different. We don't have all that, and it's not necessary for us to have that. So our approach is very loose. Seed Club has a much more structured way of approaching the things that they're doing. If you look at Developer DAO, they're onboarding tons and tons of developers, but that looks very different from Raid Guild, which is very much kind of organizing in very different ways to get to the same goal. And so depending on the people that you have in the space, let's use layman's terms, cooperative or co-op may look very different. I feel like we went down a rabbit hole, but I'll stop there. So
Tam, I can maybe add a little bit to that if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So Natalie mentioned cooperative again, and I love it because the same way, I'm a cooperative person, and I'll talk about cooperatives as ways of doing business, a legal form, a way of organizing people. And I think DAOs are very similar in that way. So you can talk about DAOs as this decentralized group of people that kind of gather on a platform to make decisions and to work together. They can participate in overseeing a project and operations, and that's a way of doing a business or an activity. So as a DAO, we can use that to say that they are decentralized, and therefore there are no boss, there are no hierarchy on that. And we can say that it's a legal form. So in the US, the state of Wyoming has adopted a specific legal form for that. That's a LLC. They kind of added a few provisions that relate to smart contract adoption, and that makes it a legal entity. But it doesn't have to be. I like cautioning people that when you want 2 or more people join together to oversee some operations and share in the benefits of it, they will be automatically a partnership. So the fact that they are not a legal entity makes them a legal entity de facto, and then increases or creates responsibilities for people that are participating. It's a very tricky thing. But I love all the aspects, and as an attorney, I like hearing from kind of like a practitioner's or a participant or contributors point of view that it can be different in all aspects, and yet those are all true factors or requirements or constants that you're going to see throughout those collaborations or platforms.
Yeah, like some may be looking at, buying a land together, and some may be looking at building the land together. Some may be just looking for the people and supply the people, and some might look like wants to have a charity. So the idea is just the varied mission, the varied is DAO.
Gotcha. I'm finishing up my notes here. Because like I said, this is my learning session. And I encourage everyone that's listening, make sure that you are taking notes and going back and doing your own research on these topics, because I guarantee you it's going to be beneficial in the end, and you can add to the conversation or ask questions of us here in the chat. So my next question is going to be, are DAOs really necessary though? Because like speaking to what you were saying, Jacqueline, like, you know, you have like an LLC and you have charity organizations kind of already. So for a person that like me, this doesn't like, is this really even necessary? Is a DAO actually necessary when it comes to the Web3 space? Like, why couldn't it just be how it is now?
Well, then you're talking about, what aspect of DAO are we talking about, right? Are we talking about it as a legal entity? Well, as a legal entity or as a group of people that need legal protection, yes, you might want to adopt a legal entity. And that legal entity, you are looking at something that correspond to DAO values. And I think that's something we cannot miss in this conversation is there are values that come with it. And the decentralization is one of those. That make it different from any other legal structure or most of the other legal structures that exist on the books. But then as a group of people, it's just another label, right? It's a way of organizing people that is web native, that adopt tokens, adopt cryptocurrency, adopt blockchains as the way of doing that organization of working together and collaborating. So are they necessary? I mean, to the extent that there is a Web3 and a blockchain as a sector that require people to be working online in a way, it's really a way of organizing online. I think that's, for me, the baseline of that. So they are important in that sense. That gives a name to something that is happening in I guess, real/virtual life.
Okay, so that does make sense. Like, if depending on how you're defining it, depending on what you're looking for, yeah, it makes sense. Like, okay, I could definitely see that. Like, if I'm planning on basically, say I have my corporation in Web 2 and I just plan on bringing it to Web 3 just to be there, then I probably might not be looking to a DAO because already this is just kind of more of an extension of like my Web 2. Whereas like if I am really anticipating like building a community around my project within the Web3 space, a DAO could be beneficial to make sure, like, you know, that I guess as far as a legal entity goes, we can even interact with the Web2 space, right? Like, is that kind of like a good kind of
I wouldn't throw the illegal. I think you were right up to correct, absolutely correct up to the legal entity part. You don't need a legal entity to operate as a group of people, right? I can do my thing with my neighbors and do the thing. I think for me, what is really exciting about the DAOs as a way of doing things is seeking decentralization and adopting principles that you're not going to see on a traditional corporation. So if that corporation just creates a DAO because now that's a way for them to create more revenue or to get engaged with Web3, and it's just their version, Web3 version of their activity in Web2, are they really a DAO? Just from the general approach of decentralization and everybody in permissionless, trustless, and participation just through contribution and benefit through that activity that you engage in, I would say that's not. You could form as a legal entity, you adopt, I have my subsidiary that's a DAO LLC formed in Wyoming. Is that really decentralized autonomous organizations based on contributors' engagement? Just the fact that you're contributing your, what we could call patronage into that, I would argue that's not. So folks from Gnosis, Silke, Noah, typically says, told me at ETH Denver recently that there's maybe 5 actual DAOs in the world, or a handful of them, maybe a few more, because we don't see really all those presence of trustless, permissionless, really full decentralization of groups of people working on Web3. So they would technically, under those factors, not be DAOs. But I think if we're all operating on a kind of cooperative basis, sharing our knowledge, sharing the benefits, and sharing the risk of doing that together with some organization, I would say, because that doesn't make it a controlling entity where you have a boss telling you what to do. So that's not bad to have some organization but also it's more true than saying, you have a C Corp version of your C Corp Web 2 version on Web 3 is a DAO. I have a hard time from all legal and non-legal angles to accept that, to be honest.
Gotcha. Okay, so that made it a lot clearer for me. Appreciate you. So the next question I have is, how will DAOs impact the way we navigate then through Web3? Would you like to start us off with that one, Jacqueline?
I'm seeing, I think it's really on a project by project basis, right? I think it's DAOs are taking real world into virtual, and so their impact is limitless and it's huge. I'm curious, what the other panelists have to say on that. I think I don't think you will need all to be in a DAO to participate in Web3. But I also think that will be a way of really getting the most benefit of being there. You're not just a consumer, or you're not just a potential source of revenue for a DAO or for another entity. You are getting out of it what you put into that, and I think that's a huge impact that we'll having in navigating and making Web3 mainstream.
Okay, thank you for that. And I see how, it is gonna matter what the project is. Absolutely. Ms. Gupta, do you have anything to add to that? How will DAOs impact the way we navigate through Web3?
Yeah, they can, as Jacqueline said, that it is basically about the project to project and DAO to DAO, how they use it. For example, in our perspective, which I can more advocate better. So we are using it for using blockchains in various stages of a project. From, if you don't know, the project goes from the concept, it goes to, it designs in the virtual sense the systems, and then we build it on site. So each of these systems now are being tackled through DAO. There are different set of people who are going to work, and then their alignment with the smart contract. Now they're using it, the smart contract, for maybe for governance, maybe for money, maybe for for justice, maybe it can be for anything. So the way it can affect the, maybe the dApps that we use in each of these workflows, on each of these operations or the missions. And it can be something like a, what kind of DeFi we are trying to use, what kind of problem we're going to solve, and to whom are we even referencing to. So there can be a difference, and because even Web3 or DAO, they can have uh, they can have the different versions. And when they have different versions, the different philosophies can come out, and as they're very nascent right now, you kind of force things and you kind of make them build. So whatever you build, but we should also not forget that when we talk about DAOs, it is all about voting, it is all about you know like more dehumanization. It's more, there's no critical thinking, because it might be that there is a issue, there are two options to it, both of them are correct, but most of the people voted for the first, not the second. And you never know, if that was the right choice for the whole community. So in that sense, how we use Web3 to pass this whole structure to a more profitable structure and more reliable structure.
Thank
I
you.
hope I made sense.
Yeah, that did make sense to me. I'm sorry, I was taking a couple notes because my next question then would be, so with us talking about DAOs, right, and how it's supposed to be a decentralized organization, basically everybody comes to this thing and they are deciding that this is the goal, and they're all coming from wherever they're at to achieve this goal, right? So then at what point does a DAO go from being decentralized to centralized, or centralized to decentralized? Because the way in my head I'm envisioning it, right, is that if I have a group of people that all believe in my cause and we're all aligned in that, and then we decide to create this organization that's gonna push forward this cause, right? And then we're bringing other people on board, but they're not part of, like, I guess, the central part, and we're all making those decisions together. Is that not centralization? So what point does DAO go from being centralized to decentralized? Natalie, if you have anything
Yeah.
to add to this.
I think it's important to understand, like, even autonomy, decentralization all live on a spectrum. Some projects that I'm involved in Web3 are super hardcore decentralized, and live on the blockchain, like, to the ninth degree. Others are somewhat decentralized, but because of their structure and because of the way that we operate and also participate, say in some of the DAOs that I'm in, it requires some level of centralization in terms of organizing people. I mean, imagine being in secondary or like high school and you're working on a project and you did all the work on a group project and you have other people that are not pulling their weight. Sometimes DAOs are like that. So you're the one doing the work, and but I think with a little bit of centralization, I know some of my friends are out there gawking at this, but a little centralization can help like organize people in a way that allows us to get to the goal or finish the project or achieve something much more quicker, thus allowing some of the DAOs, I always speak to my experience, to ship product or ship projects much more quicker than the typical than corporations, which typically, especially large corporations, have a bunch of bureaucratic red tape you have to wade through. You have to go through a whole Japanese game show obstacle course to actually like get something approved. In DAOs, you can actually have some semblance of centralization at the same time as decentralization. So you'll have little pods of people working on a specific aspect of the project, say marketing or say promotion, or say you're busting out a framework for a project. You can work in that small group to achieve something, while there's another pot of group of people that are working on, you know, handling the community vibes or handling something totally different. But all of you come together once a week to kind of report back and kind of form like Voltron to finish various aspects of the project. And so it's kind of for me like an ebb and flow, but also kind of more so than decentralization and centralization, living on some sort of spectrum. You're also kind of figuring out how to kind of maneuver in a way that actually is aligned with the values and pillars of the blockchain. So transparency being one of them. And so it's an interesting game of like tightrope in this space, and people are still trying to figure out what that means. And also we need to make space for kind of I call it a slinky, going back and forth and kind of getting people onboarded into maybe more centralized entities, and then kind of funneling them into decentralization and organizations in the space that are kind of much more kind of on the deep end of Web3. And so it's a tight rope walk in the space around that. So.
I like the reference to the spectrum, because I also like thinking of part of that spectrum is kind of centralization or decentralization of execution versus decision making, right? So I see typically traditional corporations as decentralized or centralized in decision making, but possibly decentralized in execution, versus DAOs mostly decentralized in decision making and possibly centralized in execution. You have fewer people that are very engaged, but everybody has possibly an opportunity to get engaged with the decision making process. And I think the spectrum of centralization to decentralization is kind of within that, those two, kind of execution and decision making. You see from some of the entities I have worked with, or DAOs that started, fully just Discord, went from Twitter to Discord and Snapchat, and then decided that, hey, we are raising a lot of money. We are, we're selling a product, we have a good or something to that end, we're making money, and we're concerned about our securities status, our tax liabilities. We just want to protect our members, and we want to adopt a legal entity. Some of them we have a core team of members, and I don't think having a core team of members organizers necessarily make it centralized. It just make it organized, that we know kind of, somebody needs to know what projects are going on if we're going to all go together in a direction. And I think that's kind of important. But some of them have adopted documents like bylaws, specifically with some of my clients, that say once we reach 1,000 members, our board is going to dissolve, and we're going to have a fully decentralized decision-making process and execution. It's in between now and then. Hopefully, our systems and our protocols will be good enough that we can trust that decentralization can also mean that everything is implemented through smart contracts. So they will adopt that on their documents. That's a verbatim that, and some of them will say we will have just a core member that will function as a board of directors would, but really more like a board of stewards that kind of steward our mission and guide the ship, but will and they will be responsible to signing checks when it's necessary, interacting with the real world, but all our decisions are going to be made by our members, and it's fully decentralized at this point, and we will potentially centralize when we reach 10,000 members, because maybe at that point it's really hard to coordinate, or we're going to kind of subdivide, and the projects and the channels now become their own sub-DAOs. So they will, from a legal aspect, some of my clients have built in some language that look like that. After we reach a certain number of years practicing, or as we reach a certain number of members, we might either centralize or decentralize there, because we have some expectations about what our protocol will be able to do and implement by itself.
Yeah, and adding to this point, like the decentralization is about transparency. So if you are making a decision, if you are making anything that is deciding for the whole DAO, then you have to have a transparency, and that's where we call it decentralized. But when it comes to execution, it is more about distribution of the work. So we distribute, we make guilds. Like a lot of people have guilds, because in each mission, for example, if I have a mission of like saving the world, now this can't be a mission, because it has a certain mission divided. Like for example, like they want to divide it, and maybe I want to save trees, then I want to save water. These can be different guilds where each person can work. This is a distribution of centralized energy, which is taking power of transparency and decentralization.
So what I'm hearing is that when it comes to whether or not a DAO goes from decentralization to centralization, a lot can be said to whether or not there is transparency and how the distribution of the work is divided, and really the organization itself can put in place protocols that can ensure its decentralization, even if it might start out as a centralized entity for the distribution of work. They can still put in protocols that will allow them to enforce the decentralization, essentially, right? And then make sure that they can maintain that decentralization for whatever the company might be in the future. Is that making sense? Is that right?
Sounds correct.
Okay. Yeah, so like something like that. Okay, cool. Like I said, I'm taking my notes, so you guys gotta help me out.
I love the summary.
Yeah, that's something that I did not even know like about DAOs, because when I hear it, like I just think that automatically I'm like, at some point it's gonna be centralized, and then I don't want nothing to do with it. But not even thinking about, utilize a smart contract and make sure that everybody, they do what they say they're gonna do to create the project, and then when it's time to let go of the reins, they let it go, make the protocols in place. And that's a brilliant idea. Okay, so we actually have
So I can give a quick
go ahead.
Yeah, I can give a quick example. For example,
Mhm.
in any DAO, you will need someone who can market, right?
Mhm.
So you are a set of 10 people who are looking at marketing. Then you guys divide, or you say distribute the work, like, okay, so I'll make a reel for that day or this day, and once I'll put it for everybody on the plate. Like if you want, you have comment, write it down, or else I'm posting. So now this is where, it is taking the responsibility, taking that, that yeah, we'll get the work done, but you still have the option to say yes or no. And that's what is needed, right? Like in the centralization, what else you need? Like you can ask the question to the higher authorities or someone that you're not liking, but you can ask the question, you have right to ask the question, and that's what DAO does.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Rika. Okay, so next we're going to have we have a question from the audience. They're asking, so is it a crime to operate a DAO as a subsidiary of a centralized brand?
No, but at that point, what do you mean by DAO? What are you trying to accomplish by calling it a DAO? I cannot answer that, right? It's really how does a group define it? Is that a DAO because it's a group operating online on Discord? Is that because we're adopting blockchain and cryptocurrency and we have some NFTs to raise money or to sell as products? What does that mean?
Right. So it definitely comes back to the definition of the DAO for you, right? Like you have to know, like, what do you mean? Because to me, when I read that question, I'm thinking of it, if the brand is centralized and how then does the DAO, how is it not centralized as well? Because eventually at the end of the day, that DAO still essentially answers to, or they're creating for this centralized entity. And therefore, is it really decentralized? Like if it comes back to that centralization, like, and that's the end point, to me, I would think that it's not decentralized at the end of the day. But now whether or not it's a crime or not, I don't know anything about the law, but I haven't heard anything like being written that's like you cannot do it and say it, like, so
Unless you're doing a criminal activity, right? So I guess as an attorney, I'll just back up, not giving advice, and
yeah. Nothing here. This is all conversation, learning experience. Nothing here is legal advice, financial advice. Give that disclaimer all the time. So this
right.
is
But I do
conversation
have
and
an
education.
example. I do have an example exactly on that point. I have like a client. We're still figuring out design, but that has a platform, an online platform where they sell goods, and they are, I think, a C corp, and they want to create a DAO-ish that will form as a legal entity, as a cooperative. And their kind of owners, quote unquote, are the stakeholders. So they want the customers from the platform, the online platform store, to be the members of this DAO. And if they interact with the store as a member of the DAO, they get tokens, and they have distributions that way to kind of incentivize their interaction with the entity. They get to make decisions together. They get to vote. And the sort of parent entity might have a board seat, but they are not going to have any other benefits outside of maybe some contractual relationship in between the entities. Do I call them a DAO? Not really, but was the initial approach. And the reason why it's because kind of it doesn't have its own services or its own activity per se. It is really dependent on what the parent provides as goods and services, and the members, the DAO members' interaction with that. So we could, if we're talking a DAO as in it operates on Discord and adopt a blockchain and some smart contracts, sure, I guess we could call it that way. But it's just really a platform cooperative that's providing rewards. Is another version of REI rewards, that if you buy there, you get some rewards, some basketball cards, some tokens, and another version, and that's it. So it doesn't prevent you from creating subsidiaries. It doesn't prevent you from creating entities, and it also doesn't. Technically, you still can run a very centralized DAO, but if we're thinking about the DAO principles and Web3 principles, it just might be a DAO in name, right?
Or maybe like as we are discussing, and I saw Olenka writing something, so it made me a question, like, what, for example, if I will not name the DAO, but if that DAO is collecting a lot of people who can do certain service, now that service can be provided to a company which is centralized. Now the formation, the people coming in, like this, how you say, the onboarding of people is decentralized, but the purpose is to use it for a centralized company. And that's how service DAO works, maybe, like they provide a service for a centralized companies for a certain set of rules. So yeah, I think it is possible, and I don't know if it is crime or not, but definitely there can be a lot of permutation and combinations that we can look at.
Yeah, and that's a excellent point that I didn't even really think about. Like, if you're just coming together, maybe you're as your DAO, like coming together to create these things for the centralized, like companies. Like that's a definitely a different way where I could see. Okay, you would have a DAO that is, I guess, they would kind of be attached to the company and a part of the centralized brand. Thank you so much for that, Jacqueline and Enrica. Thank you so much. All right, so the next question that we have is what can corporations set up their own DAO? Can corporations set up their own DAOs?
I think, and Jacqueline can chime in as well. Love hearing both of your thoughts, by the way. Jacqueline said something to the tune that, there I see a lot of corporations coming into the space and they're like, we're gonna start a DAO. And I'm like, do you even know what a DAO is? Do you understand the principles of the space? Why are you creating a DAO? How does it actually benefit your employees? Have you actually addressed your already existing HR issues? So I want to maybe explore like what that actually looks like for you, and whether I'm the first person to say not everybody needs to start a DAO. It's actually quite challenging. I'm a people person, and I'm still like, yikes. I work with a lot of people. I manage some teams in the space, and so or leading the teams in the space on specific projects, and it can be very challenging. Like I co-lead a DAO that has like literally 7,500 people in there, and you have all these people with personalities, thoughts, and opinions. And do you really want to start a DAO where you have to constantly interface with people that in your normal day to day life wouldn't really listen to? And so really think about kind of your structure, and if you're open to people shifting from just being a mere consumer to being a participant and somebody that's wanting to contribute to the longevity or growth of your company. And if that's actually how you want to position yourself, I think it's actually brilliant. There are some corporations, no names, coming into the space, and they are spending a lot of time in DAOs, are actually participating to get their head wrapped around that. I spent some time with a big media company a few weeks ago, and their whole entire media team was kind of discussing what would it look like for their media team to become a DAO themselves. And I'm like, your corporation's not at all aligned with the values of this space. And are you willing to share kind of the profits or the rewards and incentives that you kind of would essentially extract from the space with the people that are actually doing the work, and not just give it to your shareholders? Are you really ready to like explore what that looks like? But this space can actually challenge those traditional corporate narratives and frameworks. And I think that that's the beauty of the DAOs. And that's why I've left any semblance of the centralized world to participate full time in DAOs because of that. And so we'll see. So.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Good ad. I think you're very right. It seems like, because it seems like if you're not aligned with the values in the space as a corporation, if you're not aligned with, like, truly really aligned with your customer, rather than being just able to predict what they're going to do, or if they're pregnant like 3 months before they're actually showing, like, rather than just seeing them as that, you have to really value people in this space and then value their input. And I think a lot of these traditional companies, they could find that it turns out to be a bigger headache by trying to come into this space with your mind frame as a company, with the way you organize yourself as a company, still in the Web 2 realm, right? Because we talked about in our earlier panel, like, how much this space is about connection and community. And if you don't really have a community like, you just have maybe a community of consumers. Like I can see how it would be a problem to create, like if I were a giant, I don't know, sneaker corporation and I was like, I'm gonna change myself to a DAO for the Web3 space, and then I have like a bunch of people who have bought into it. And now they want to change the shoes, they want to do this, they want to, and everybody has a different opinion. I can see how it would be it could become like an overwhelming thing to even like, take that on as a business. So definitely you have to make sure that you, as a corporation, I can see how you have to make sure that your values are aligned with this space. So absolutely. Thank you so much, Natalie.
Tim, and I think that's, and yes, to all that you both said, but I think that's why the cooperative business model of doing business is one that is really aligned, and it kind of, it's hard to talk corporations as stockholders economy versus cooperatives and DAOs as a stakeholders economy, right? So you give, you participate, you have that interaction, and your return is based on actually participating outside of putting money in and expecting a return based on other people's work. So even in the case of a consumer, is the way you just described, right? So I could imagine a brand that says, yes, we're gonna create a DAO, and their legal form is going to be a cooperative, because it's really easy. You have membership classes, so you have the consumer class, and then maybe you have the workers class, and you give voting rights to those classes, and you tell which things they can vote on or not, and then you have a core team that kind of organizes, manages the everyday, implements things, but you give everybody voting right. And then maybe the sales of those sneakers generate profits, and if I buy in and I engage in participating and promoting the thing and providing my input, my designs, I receive a return back. I'm compensated by the services that I provide, but I'm also compensated for that patronage activity, that interaction, in returns of surplus, instead of a investor or a stockholder receiving that surplus, the profit distribution. Me as a contributor, a stakeholder that has participated in this, have voted, have made decisions, have interacted. Now I get my profit, my part of the profit, because I put in more than just the fact that I had capital that I could spare and sat back and waited for it. So I think in the I don't just like fitting the DAOs into the cooperative model, but I think in that and that they have similar values of caring for society, caring for the others, caring for benefiting those that actually putting the work into it. You could see DAOs that are producers, DAOs that are worker or contributor focused, or purchasing DAOs. And imagine a DAO that's formed to purchase insurance together for all the other DAOs that have not adopted a legal entity. And now, if you haven't, your DAO and your members are likely to have personal liability. And in the case of default or anything that happens to the DAO. So that's something in the space that's needed, is insurance coverage. It would be really expensive if and when things go down. So I could see a DAO that is a purchasing entity, shared services, that buy a big umbrella insurance that where other DAOs can buy in themselves and get protection that way. So the same way that you see different sectors within the cooperative economy, you could see also reproduced, I think, in the DAO and Web3 space.
Wow, I think that definitely goes back to like kind of thinking about what the difference is and what this space values. Like you said, it takes more of like an alignment, I guess, with the stakeholder versus stockholder. And I could see definitely what you mean by that, because stakeholders, like they're putting in, because not because like, you say they have money lying around, but because they actually believe in this project or whatever. And you, as the corporation, you are then beholden to those stakeholders in that way, and making sure that whatever project you do take on, like, is for, I guess, for your community, like, So we have one last question, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap up for the day. But our question here on screen says, will there be other Web3 entities or classifications so that DAO doesn't get overused?
So I may want to take it if I got it correct. So like it is not like a new thing. or it is always a cycle. I was having a read, I don't remember where, but it was about how history has always came back. So earlier it was agriculture, people were working together, and that was a decentralization format. But then people realized, no, maybe we can shift together. Like a certain person wants, a certain people wants to maybe just live on maybe milk, so maybe they can just go together and form a city. And now, because they form a city, they appointed someone that you take care of everything, we'll work, or we'll keep on working, you just take care of the maintenance and stuff. And then it it genero- it generated a lot of egos, and then the thing came up is like ego, and then it comes like to be centralized, and slowly it becomes the issue of power. And then again, those sort of cities which tend from like agricultural land to this thing got dispersed, and they got like, maybe you can say Mesopotamia, they all just vanished. And then the only thing that remained till now is the agriculture that people are doing decentralized, in a decentralized way, right? So it is a long sustainable method. Now this method is again like, people are again talking about it, people are again thinking about decentralization. So there is no same thing that gonna classify or say, okay, this is the only way. It will keep on evolving as web3 evolves, as any other thing evolves. This space of DAO is evolving. You don't know the definition yet. It's not about DAO, it's not about anything. It's about transparency, and it's about decentralization. It's about the power in the hand of commons. It's not about DAOs, because that is just a term that coined by someone, but the idea is more deeper than that.
And I would say the idea is actually more important than like it than the word itself. Like it's really the idea behind it, which is the idea behind this whole space, is putting the power, as you said, back into the hands of the people, and also transparency. And I can't like stress that enough. Like this is a huge reason why this whole entire space was attractive to me, because realizing that I had the ability to take my power back, and I could see what everybody else is doing. So like, you could build that trust, and it's not based on, like you said, the egos, and it really is based on what true value is. Like, what I actually value, like not what people tell me to value or what other people valuing, but I have the options here to find out what really works for me. And so thank you so much for that, Miss Gupta. Anybody else want to go ahead and chime in on that? If not, I'm gonna say,
Maybe
oh, go ahead.
maybe a
Yeah.
last thing is that to the question at hand, we'll continue to see the rise of other emergent organizational structures pop up. I would kind of remind people that DAOs, even though they've been around for quite some years, are it's still very nascent. We're, as a community, still learning a lot about what it means to actually operate DAOs, what it means to be an operator or participant. We're still reimagining what it looks like to be involved in kind of structures like this. And I say that as a, community of people, operating. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of DAOs now across the globe, and people are kind of pushing out thought leadership and carving out new frameworks and structures and learning things every single day. If you join DAO Twitter, you'll see that. And so I think we'll continue to see more DAOs pop up that kind of push the space forward, but also people thinking about what does it look like to dismantle the nonprofit industrial complex or nonprofits and really work towards real social impact to solve actual problems. And we're seeing that with entities like Future Foundation and other folks. We're seeing people pop up and really want to solve problems. And so through that, I think we'll see other people carving out different types of structures. DAOs are not for everybody. And so people that don't find themselves in that space or have the ability to be onboarded by good folks in the trenches, they will create new things and will learn from those things and begin to make space for other entities that will continue to kind of challenge the status quo and challenge things that have been and the way that we have traditionally operated as human beings. And so I think that's actually quite exciting about Web3. And so we'll see.
Yeah, and I don't know, like if it happens for you, and most of you agree with me or not here, but when you are working for a centralized firm, it's really good. Okay, that's you're working, you are earning and whatnot. But when it comes to your passion, sometimes it is compromised. So what if like it's the idea is to come together and just explore something, just do for your living, just do it for some agenda. Maybe it's not about profits, but it is about more than that. So that's in that format, DAO works the best, I think, because it is driven by the emotion of the passions of the missions. But when it comes to earning, and obviously, if earning joins this passion, it's amazing. But definitely, if you're working in a centralized format, it's okay to just continue, but also disagree where things are wrong, and maybe try to foresee DAOs. And as your point.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming through today. We're going to end right there. And before we get out of here, though, I want to give you guys each about 30 seconds to let our audience know where they can follow you, where they can find you, what you might have coming up in the future. And don't forget to connect. You connect with all of our speakers, all of our panelists on Discord. But go ahead, Rico, we'll start with you.
So yeah, I'll welcome you all guys to join ArchiDAO, and to if you want to ever build something anywhere in the world, because it's a global community, and that's the essence of DAO. So it's a global community. If you want to make your house in Nigeria, or you're looking at your house in US or in India, it's there for you. And definitely you can find me as Richard's Empire, RICHASEMPIRE, on Instagram, Twitter, and yeah, and on Discord also. And LinkedIn is Richa Gupta. Hi. So please drop me a hi. I'll be really interested to know you. It's not about DAO. It's about the initiative and the visions that we all live and thrive for. So it's always about the conversation that we can keep on having, and you know grow together. That's the whole idea. Give and take to the world. And thank you so much for organizing this. This is exciting. Like, this is exciting.
Thank you. Thank you for coming so much. Natalie, go ahead and give us your outro.
Thank you so much, Tam, and the rest of the incredible folks here. It's been incredible, rich conversation. You can find me across Janet Jackson's internet, Natalie Crew everywhere, on LinkedIn, Twitter, all the things. I'm also co-community lead of Blockbuster DAO, and we are doing some incredible stuff over there. And also M Club, which is a sub DAO of Seed Club, and a few DAOs on Near Protocol. And so if you're interested in DAOs and figuring out how you can participate, always happy to be a resource for women looking to get into Web3 or people that are existing here. I'm always connecting the dots, so feel free to reach out at any time. And thank you all once again, Jacqueline and Frika.
Thank you, Natalie. Yes, Shannon Jackson's internet. All right, Jacqueline, go ahead. Let us know what you have upcoming.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. Thank you for organizing this and for the rich conversation. It's been great. You can find me on all over social media, and I'm with Lex DAO. So that's a legal DAO with legal engineers and attorneys that have put together Kali DAO that provides a kind of free LLC formation to help you with DAOs with version 1 formation and just kind of get started without needing an attorney immediately. And then you can find me on Twitter, and I post quite a bit of articles on DAO cooperative overlaps. So I don't have I think that's what I have for now. And again, it's been great talking with you guys, and thank you again for the invite.
Okay, thank you so much, ladies, again for joining me today. I cannot express again how informative this is, and I thank you guys because this is my real first interaction, like introduction to DAOs. As you all know, the Web3 space is vast, and so I've been trying to get in as much information in this brain as I can. And so I really appreciate you guys taking out your time to not just come here and help educate me, but really spread this information to everyone who will see this today and in the future. And just thank you, ladies, so much. You are appreciated here. And thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and huge shout out to all of you. Like, like Yinka, like she was always there to answer the queries and stuff. It was really a smooth
Absolutely.
journey. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies. So we're going to go ahead and wish you guys have a good day. See you later. And last but not least, we're just going to do a final shout out to our sponsors. Thank you to everybody that joined us for this Worldwide Web3 Wednesday. Join us on tomorrow for Table Talk Thursdays. And this is a good time to come in and get more information. So what's the topic on tomorrow's for Table Talk Thursdays, Yinka?
So Table Talk Thursday is our fireside chat. We're going to get to know some of these pioneers in this space in a more intimate level. We're going to go through Q&As, ask them some really good questions, and find out what they're building, what they're contributing to this space. I have to say, this particular Worldwide Wednesday has been phenomenal. I mean, that's not to take away from any of our other Wednesdays, but man, this one was like engaging. We had deep discussions today.
Yeah, a lot of these deep discussions that we've been talking about, how we really want to dive in and get deeper. And so please help us by continuing the conversation over on Discord. Join the Discord. Shout out again to all of our sponsors. We appreciate you seeing this vision and understanding how valuable and how important it is. Copper Seed Safe, Hero, Defantasy, and Block. We really appreciate all of their support here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I want everyone to continue to join us. We have more in store for you. We have 2 more weeks in March, and we will have content for the entire month of March. We've been starting this since March 1st, and it keeps going and keeps getting stronger. We keep getting more women who want to participate, who want to bring their voices onto our live stream and be able to tap into these thorough discussions that we're having, which is very valuable in this space. So we want y'all to continue to join us and stay safe. Enjoy the rest of the day and see you tomorrow at 9:00 Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you purchase your ticket and join us.
Purchase your ticket.
Bye, everyone.
Invite a friend. Bye.
Thank you.